The room stank of crushed herbs and old blood and the sour sweetness of poppy. It clung to the back of Eddard Stark's throat until he could taste it with every breath, as if the gods themselves had spilled a cup of bitterness into his mouth and told him to swallow. Robert Baratheon lay upon his bed like a fallen oak, huge, even broken, the lion's claw already deep in his belly. He was gray with pain, his beard damp, his thick fingers slack upon the sheets. The boar had torn him open, Grand Maester Pycelle said, but Eddard knew a boar did not pour wine, and tusks did not whisper in a queen's ear.
Come closer, Robert rasped.
His voice had once filled courtyards and battlefields. Now it barely filled the space between them. Eddard stepped forward. The hand's chain felt too heavy, each link a reminder of promises made to dying men. Robert's eyes found him blue, bloodshot, still stubborn as stone. You'll see it done, Robert said. It will be as you command, Eddard told him. His own voice sounded strange, as though it belonged to some other man in some other room, a man who had not watched a friend bleed out beneath the high windows of the Red Keep. Robert's lips twitched. Might have been a smile, might have been a grimace. I should have listened to you. 7 hells. Ned, I should have listened. Cersei stood near the foot of the bed, hands folded as if in prayer. The torchlight gilded her hair and made her green eyes bright as cut glass. She did not pray. She waited. Pycelle fussed and clucked, offering more milk of the poppy with trembling hands. Robert turned his head away as if the cup were poison. No, he growled, the old king flashing through the broken one. No more. I'll die awake. Eddard could feel the room tightening around him. The queen's silence was a rope. The maester's murmurs were flies. Somewhere beyond the walls, King's Landing breathed and muttered and dreamt of bread and gold and the next hanging. Robert's fingers twitched and found Eddard's wrist with surprising strength. Protect my children, he whispered. The words struck like a hammer. Your children? Eddard thought, and saw flaxen hair, green eyes, and the hard, cold mouth of a lion cub. I will, he said anyway, because oaths were what kept men from becoming beasts. As I swore, Robert's grip loosened. His breath rattled. Good, good. His gaze wandered toward the door, toward shadows Eddard could not see. Lyanna! It was Cersei who spoke then, her voice smooth as poured honey. You should rest, your grace. Robert's eyes snapped back, and in them Eddard saw hatred raw and unsoftened by pain. Don't, Robert croaked. Don't. A fit of coughing seized him, wet and deep. Pycelle surged forward, fussing, and Robert's hand fell away. Eddard straightened. There was nothing more to do here that would not feel like theft. He bowed his head to his friend and turned, his boots scraping the stone. As he reached the door, Robert's voice came again, a scrape of iron across bone.
Ned.
Eddard looked back. For once, Robert whispered, be cruel, cruel. The word followed Eddard into the corridor like a shadow that would not let go. Outside, the Red Keep was a maze of torchlit passages and sleeping stone. Guards nodded as he passed, though he saw the questions in their eyes. They all knew the king was dying. The castle itself seemed to know. Even the air was holding its breath. He had just reached the bend that opened toward the Tower of the Hand when he heard quick footsteps behind him, light, urgent, and too well dressed to belong to a common guard. Lord Stark, a voice called softly. Renly Baratheon emerged from the gloom like a bright banner in a dark hall. He wore green velvet and a half-smile, and he moved with the ease of a man born to courts. Behind him came Ser Loras Tyrell, pale as moon milk, and half a dozen men in green and gold with cloaks damp from night air. Renly's gaze flicked toward the king's chamber. Is he dying? Eddard said. The word tasted like rust. Renly exhaled, and for a heartbeat his charm slipped, revealing something harder beneath. Then we have no time. Eddard's hand found the wolf's head pommel at his hip, more from instinct than threat. What are you doing here? Saving you, Renly said, and the half-smile returned. Saving us? if you've the sense to be saved. Loras shifted behind him, fingers near his sword hilt. Renly's men watched Eddard as men watch a storm cloud. Wary, ready. Renly leaned in, lowering his voice. Cersei will move before dawn. She will have the gold cloaks. She will have the gates. She will have your daughters, and she will have you. His eyes glittered. I offered you this once before and you refused. I'm offering again, because I would rather you alive than dead and noble. Eddard felt the corridor narrow. You would have me seize the queen and the children. I would have you seize the queen and the children before the queen seizes you. Renly's voice sharpened. Not harm them.
Gods? No.
Take them into your keeping. Take Joffrey. Take Tommen. Take Myrcella. With the heirs in your hand, you can summon Stannis and force the realm to accept him. Without them, Renly spread his hands. Without them, you will stand in the throne room with a piece of parchment and a prayer, and Cersei will laugh as men in gold cloaks put a knife in your back. It was too close to what Eddard feared. He had seen the city watch in the streets, the way their eyes slid toward coin. He had heard Peter Baelish's silky assurances and felt the itch of distrust. He had felt the trap closing, slow as a noose. Honor, whispered the old voice in his head. This is not the way. Duty, answered another voice, older and colder. Robert said, be cruel. Eddard looked at Renly Baratheon, the young king's brother. Renly's cheeks were smooth, his beard no more than shadow. Yet he spoke with the certainty of a man who had watched power kill. Perhaps Perhaps he had simply learned the language. You swear, Eddard said, that no harm will come to the children. Renly blinked, surprised. Harm? Lord Stark. Swear it? Eddard pressed, and felt something inside him shift like a door bar being lifted. On your brother's memory. On your house. Renly's smile thinned. He held Eddard's gaze for a moment, then nodded once. On House Baratheon. On Robert's name. No harm will come to them. His eyes flicked, quick as a knife. But we must be swift. Eddard heard himself speak, and in the words he heard Winterfell's cold iron. Then we move now. Renly's relief was brief, replaced instantly by urgency. Good. God's good. He turned to his men. To MAEGOR'S Holdfast. Quiet. No shouting unless you want the whole keep awake. Eddard's mind raced ahead, mapping corridors, gates, guard posts. He thought of Sansa in her bedchamber dreaming of songs. He thought of Arya in some corner of the castle, restless as a wolf pup. He thought of the queen, sharp and proud and desperate. He thought of Joffrey's cruel mouth. He also thought of Stannis Baratheon on Dragonstone, hard as flint and twice as likely to cut. He took a breath that tasted of torch smoke and poppy and blood. First, Eddard said, we secure the Rookery. Renly's brows rose. Ravens. Ravens. Eddard's voice did not waver. No message leaves the Red Keep without my seal. Not tonight. Renly's grin returned, bright and predatory. Now you sound like a hand. They moved. The Red Keep at night was a beast half asleep, its stone ribs warm with day's heat and its passages full of murmurs. The distant clink of a guard's spear butt, the hush of servants carrying chamber pots, the soft laughter of some lord's drunken cousin lost on the way to a bed that was not his own. Eddard walked at Renly's side with his cloak drawn close. The air carried the salt stink of Blackwater Bay through narrow windows. Somewhere a dog barked, sharp and lonely. Renly's men moved like hunters who had rehearsed this chase 100 times. That was another thing Eddard did not like. Renly had thought of this before, perhaps many times, and he had chosen his moment with care. At a stairwell, they found 2 household guards dicing by torchlight, their helms off, their laughter soft. They looked up as Eddard approached and froze. On your feet, Eddard said. He did not shout. He did not need to. The hand's chain did the shouting for him. One guard scrambled up, eyes wide. My lord, you will come with us, Eddard said, and you will do as you're told. If you speak of what you see tonight, I will have your tongues. Do you understand? They understood. Men always understood when death was close enough to smell. They marched on up a narrow spiral. The rookery lay high, near the keep's crown, where the ravens could feel the sky. The door was guarded by 2 more men, sleepy, bored. Renly's knights fanned out, silent steel in torch glow. Eddard stepped forward. "Open." The guard blinked. "My lord, the maester." "Open," Eddard repeated, and there was winter in the word. The door opened. Inside, the air was thick with feathers and droppings, a sharp, ammoniac bite that made Eddard's eyes water. Maester Wolkan had once told him ravens remembered faces. Eddard wondered what these ravens remembered of kings. A low croak answered him from the dark. A young acolyte sat at a table, ink pot and parchment before him, dozing. He jerked awake at the sound of boots. "My lord hand." "No ravens tonight," Eddard said. "Lock the cages. If any bird leaves this room before dawn, you will hang from the battlements." The boy's face went pale. "My lord, Renly moved past Eddard, smiling like a man at a feast. "The hand speaks for the king, lad. Do as he says, and you'll live to send 1,000 ravens." Eddard's gaze swept the room. He saw the small hatches that opened to night air, the perches, the cages. He saw the messages, some tied already, waiting for morning. He took them unread and shoved them into his cloak. He would read them later, when there was time to be angry. "2 men here," he told Renly. "Yours." Renly nodded, and 2 of his knights stayed, swords drawn, faces hard. The rookery was secured. They descended, the stairwell echoing with measured steps. As they rounded a corner near the kitchens, a soft rustle came, like silk on stone. Varys was there, as if the castle had exhaled him. He stood with hands folded, bald head gleaming, a plump pale shadow in fine robes. His smile was gentle. "My lords," he said, voice honeyed. "Out so late? The hour is unkind." Eddard felt the hairs rise on his neck. "So is treason." Varys' smile did not change. "Indeed, treason is always unkind." His eyes flicked over the armed men, the drawn swords. "May I ask what?" "No," Eddard said. Renly chuckled softly. "Lord Varys, do you truly want to know? It may make you uncomfortable." Varys placed a hand upon his chest in mock hurt. "Uncomfortable? Me? I live in discomfort, Lord Renly." His gaze returned to Eddard. "But if you will not tell me, I shall content myself with guessing." "Content yourself with silence," Eddard said. He stepped closer until he could smell Varys' perfume beneath the castle's stink. "If you interfere tonight, you will die." For a flicker of time, Varys' eyes sharpened. Not fear, calculation. Then he bowed his head, serene. "As you command, Lord Hand." They moved past him. Eddard did not look back, but he could feel Varys watching as a spider watches a fly. The next target was MAEGOR'S Holdfast, the heart within the heart of the Red Keep. A fortress inside a fortress, built by a king who trusted no one. Its drawbridge rose at night. Its gates were thick. Its walls were clean stone that gleamed pale in torchlight like bone. As they approached the inner gate, Eddard heard the hiss of water in the moat and the faint churn of frogs. 2 guards stood at the raised bridge, spears crossed. Their armor bore the crown, though Eddard suspected coin mattered more than crowns to any man in King's Landing. "Halt," one called. "Who goes there?" "The hand of the king," Eddard answered, stepping into torchlight. "And Lord Renly Baratheon." "Lower the bridge." The guard hesitated. "My lord, the queen. The king commands." Renly cut in smoothly. "Unless you mean to tell me you take orders from Cersei Lannister rather than Robert Baratheon." The guard's mouth opened, closed. His eyes darted to the armed men behind them. Eddard leaned in. "Open," he said quietly, "or I will open you." The bridge creaked as chains groaned. It lowered slowly, reluctantly, like a jaw opening for food it did not want. They crossed. Inside, the Holdfast's courtyard was darker, torches fewer. Shadows pooled beneath arches. A cold wind slid along stone. Renly's men spread out, securing doors, taking stairwells. Eddard's heart hammered with the sense of stepping into a lion's den. At the base of the stairs leading up toward the royal apartments, a man in white armor stood, Kingsguard. His helm was under one arm, revealing a young face with soft Dornish features and a wary gaze.
Serari soakert.
My Lord Hand, he said, stiff as a drawn bow. Lord Renly. Eddard held his gaze.
Seraris.
Stand azide.
Seais jautiktanat.
The Queen has commanded. The King is still alive, Renly said, voice hardening. And the Hand speaks with his voice. Ser Ares looked from Renly to Eddard. This is MAEGOR'S Holdfast. No man enters without the Queen's leave. Eddard's patience was a thin thing. You swore an oath to protect the King, he said. The King's law, the King's blood. Tonight you will protect it by obeying me. Ser Ares' fingers flexed on his helm. Somewhere above, a door creaked. A servant's footsteps fled. Eddard stepped closer. If you raise your sword against me, he said softly, you will die. I do not want that, but I will not be turned aside. For a long breath, the Kingsguard knight stood still, like a statue carved in indecision. Then his shoulders sagged a fraction. He stepped aside, eyes dark. As you command, Lord Hand. Renly's smile flashed, quick and sharp. Wise. They climbed. The royal apartments were warm with firelight and rich with perfume. As if Cersei Lannister believed scent and silk could keep death from the door. They found her standing before the hearth, a goblet in hand. She wore a gown of deep green that made her eyes brighter, her hair a waterfall of gold. She looked as if she had been waiting, and perhaps she had. Joffrey was there too, in crimson, his hair shining, his mouth already twisting into a sneer. Myrcella sat on a cushioned bench, doll in lap, wide-eyed. Tommen was nowhere to be seen at first, but Eddard heard a soft whimper from behind a screen. Sandor Clegane stood near Joffrey, massive, scarred, one hand resting on his sword. His burned face caught the firelight and made him look half demon, half man. Cersei did not flinch as Eddard entered with Renly and armed men behind them. She raised her goblet slightly. Lord Stark, she said, as if greeting him at a feast. How thoughtful of you to come. I wondered when you might. Eddard's hand tightened on his sword hilt. Your Grace, he said, though he did not mean it. Renly stepped forward, all charm and steel. Sister, he said, we've come to relieve you of a burden. Cersei's smile was thin. And what burden is that? The burden of pretending, Renly said lightly. Cersei set her goblet down with deliberate care. Pretending? Dear Renly, I have pretended nothing in my life. I have taken what was mine and kept it. Eddard spoke, and his voice cut through the warmth like cold air. The king is dying. Before he dies, he has named me protector of the realm. He held up the parchment, sealed. By his command, I am responsible for the safety of the realm and the king's true heir. Joffrey snatched up the words before Cersei could respond. True heir, he spat. I am the heir. I am the king's son. I am. You are a boy, Eddard said, and the bluntness startled even him. And you will hold your tongue. Joffrey's face flushed scarlet. Sandor shifted, teeth bared in something that might have been a grin. The hound enjoyed cruelty, even when it was not his own. Cersei's eyes narrowed. You are bold tonight, Lord Stark. Perhaps the milk of the poppy has made you brave. It has made me tired, Eddard said. Tired of lies. Tired of Lannisters. Renly's men moved quietly into the room, positioning themselves by doors and windows. Cersei's gaze flicked toward them, then back to Eddard. What is this? She asked softly. An arrest. A protection, Eddard said. Your children will come with me. Myrcella's doll slipped from her fingers and thumped onto the floor. She stared at Eddard, frightened but silent, as though she had learned early that children's screams did not matter to grown men. Cersei's smile vanished.
No.
Renly's voice stayed smooth. Do not make this difficult. Cersei took a step closer to Eddard, and in her eyes he saw the lioness, cornered and ready to bite. "You have no right." "I have the king's right," Eddard said. "And the realm's." Cersei's laughter came sharp. "The realm, always the realm with you. You northerners cling to words like babes to blankets." She leaned closer, voice dropping. "Do you think you can hold them? Do you think you can hold the city? The gold cloaks will follow who pays them. The lords will follow who flatters them. And your precious honor will follow you into a grave." Eddard's temper flared, sudden and hot. "My honor will outlive you." Cersei's gaze slid toward Joffrey. "My son will be king." Eddard's sword left its scabbard with a soft rasp. Not raised, not threatened, simply present, a fact like winter. "Your son," he said, "is not Robert's." The words hung in the air like smoke. Joffrey's mouth fell open. "You!" Cersei's face went very still. For a heartbeat, the room was silent but for the crackle of the fire. Then Cersei moved, fast as a snake, one hand darting toward her sleeve. Sandor's sword half drew with a hiss. Renly's men surged, and steel flashed in firelight. Eddard stepped forward and caught Cersei's wrist before she could pull free whatever blade she had hidden. Her skin was warm, her grip was strong, her nails dug into his hand. "Release me," she hissed. "No," Eddard said and tightened. Sandor took a step forward, towering, his eyes on Eddard. "Careful," the hound growled. "That's the queen." "That's a woman," Eddard replied. "And she's not my queen." Renly's men had Joffrey now, hands on his arms. The boy thrashed, screaming threats. "Let go, let go. I'll have you all killed. I'll have your heads on spikes." Myrcella began to cry, soft at first, then louder. From behind the screen came Tommen, dragged forward by a terrified servant, clutching at her skirts. He was half asleep, hair mussed, face wet with tears. Eddard's stomach twisted at the sight. Innocent, he thought. Whatever else, innocent. He released Cersei's wrist and stepped back. "No one harms them," he said, loud enough that every man heard. "Not a scratch. If any of you lays a hand in cruelty, I will cut it off." Renly nodded. "You heard the hand." Cersei's eyes burned. "You will regret this," she whispered. Eddard met her gaze. "I regret trusting you," he said. "I regret bringing my daughters into your city. I regret that I did not see your lies sooner." He gestured toward the children. "But I do not regret this." Cersei's laugh was brittle. "You think you have one." She stepped toward him again, voice low, venomous. "Listen to me, Stark. When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. There is no middle ground." Eddard's voice was colder than he felt. "Then we shall see who dies." They took the children. Joffrey screamed until Sandor struck him hard enough to make him stumble. Snarling, "Shut it, boy!" Myrcella clung to her doll again, sobbing quietly. Tommen clung to Myrcella, small hands tight, trembling. Cersei watched them go, standing before her hearth like a golden statue cracking from within. "I will have my children back," she said softly, and Eddard believed her. "And I will have your daughters too." Eddard did not answer. He could not afford answers tonight. He could only afford actions. As they descended the stairs of MAEGOR'S Holdfast, Eddard heard Cersei's voice echo behind them, a promise spoken to the stone. "You will die for this." Eddard held his face still and his steps steady, and inside him Robert's rasp returned. "Be cruel." The tower of the hand smelled of parchment and old wood and the faint, familiar tang of wolf fur. Eddard had thought, when he first came south, that the tower would feel like a safe place, a wedge of the north driven into the heart of the capital. Tonight it felt like a tomb waiting to be filled. He had sent Hallis Malin ahead with orders, and the man had obeyed with the grim speed of a soldier who had seen too many bodies to waste time. Sansa was in her chamber when Eddard entered, hair loose, cheeks flushed from sleep and confusion. She rose from her bed as if it were a stage and she a lady in a song. "Father?" she breathed. What is happening? I heard shouting." Eddard's gaze flicked to Septa Mordain, who looked pale and offended, clutching her seven-pointed star as if it could ward off chaos. "My lord," she began. "This is most improper." "Silence," Eddard said, and Septa Mordane's mouth snapped shut as if slapped. He turned to Sansa. "Dress. Warm clothes. Cloak. You will do as you're told." Sansa blinked, wounded. "But Joffrey is not your concern," Eddard snapped, then softened as he saw her flinch. He hated harshness in her eyes. It made him think of the South and what it did to girls. Arya appeared from the shadows like she had been waiting there all along. She was barefoot, hair wild, wooden practice sword in hand. "I knew it," she said fiercely. "I knew something was wrong." Eddard closed his eyes for a heartbeat. He wanted to take them both back to Winterfell, to the yard with snow, to the smell of hot bread and wolf pups. He wanted to tear the city from the earth and throw it into the sea. "We leave," he said. Sansa's face lit briefly with hope. "Home?" "Not yet," Eddard said. "Soon. But tonight you will stay here, and you will not leave these rooms unless I am with you." Arya frowned. "Why? Did the Queen do something?" Eddard's jaw tightened. He thought of Cersei's eyes, of her threat, of the way she had spoken of daughters as weapons. "Yes," he said. "She did." Sansa's lip trembled. "But she is the Queen." Eddard looked at his eldest daughter, at the softness in her, the songs she clung to like a lifeline. "Not for much longer," he said. In the hall outside, the sound of armored boots echoed. Renly's men bringing the royal children into the tower's lower rooms. Eddard heard Joffrey shouting, heard Myrcella crying, heard Tommen's thin wail. Sansa's eyes widened at the sound. Arya's hand tightened on her sword. "What is that?" Sansa whispered. Eddard did not answer. He could not yet, not while the words might break something in her that could never be repaired. He turned to Hallis Malin, who stood by the door with 2 Stark guards, face hard. "Double the men," Eddard ordered. "No one enters these rooms. No one." Hallis nodded. "Aye, my lord." Renly entered then, breath quick, cheeks flushed with the thrill of movement. He glanced at the girls and offered Sansa a smile that might have charmed her on any other day. Tonight it felt wrong, like a bright ribbon tied around a sword. "Your daughters," Renly said lightly, "are safer now than they've been since you rode through these gates." Eddard's gaze was cold. "Safer does not mean safe." Renly's smile faltered for a heartbeat. "You've done it, Lord Stark. You've taken the lion cubs. The Queen will snarl, but she cannot bite while her teeth are in your hand." "She can bite," Eddard said. "She has other teeth." Renly's eyes gleamed. "Then we pull them too." Eddard looked away, toward the window where the city lights flickered like a field of fireflies. "I will not butcher children." Renly's voice softened, almost sincere.
"No."
"Of course not." Then, quick as a blade turned in sunlight, it sharpened again. "But you must understand. Mercy can be another way to die." Eddard turned back. "What do you want, Renly?" Renly spread his hands. "What I always want. A realm that does not tear itself apart." His gaze slid toward Sansa, then Arya, then back to Eddard. "A realm where men like you do not end up on spikes because they trusted words." Eddard did not trust Renly's words, not fully, but he trusted the men at his back and the steel in their hands. A commotion rose from below. Joffrey shouting again, louder, "You can't keep me here. I am the king. I'll have your heads." Renly rolled his eyes. "Gods, he's tiresome." Eddard felt a surge of weary anger. "He is a child." "A child with a crown," Renly said. "And crowns do strange things to boys." Eddard walked to the stairwell, Renly at his side. Below, in the tower's lower hall, Joffrey stood between 2 of Renly's men, face twisted with rage. Sandor Clegane loomed nearby, silent, watching with his mismatched eyes. Myrcella sat on a bench, clutching Tommen, both red-eyed. Pycelle was nowhere. Varys was nowhere. Littlefinger was nowhere. That absence was as loud as bells. Eddard stepped into the hall and raised his voice. Enough! Joffrey spun toward him. You traitor! He lunged as far as his captors allowed. You will kneel to me. You will. Eddard's voice cut through him. You will sit. Joffrey blinked, stunned by the command. I. Eddard stepped closer until he could see the flecks of spittle on the boy's lips. If you shout again, he said quietly, I will have your mouth gagged. If you strike anyone, I will have you bound. You are not king. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. Joffrey's breath hitched. For the first time, fear flickered behind the rage. It was small, but it was there. Sandor's mouth curled, half amusement, half contempt. He's got your number, boy. Silence. Joffrey hissed at him, but his voice shook. Eddard turned away from the boy and knelt before Myrcella and Tommen. Myrcella shrank back, clutching Tommen tighter. Tommen stared at Eddard with wide, wet eyes. Eddard's throat tightened. He thought of Bran falling, of Rickon crying, of how small children were when the world moved to crush them. You'll not be harmed, he told them, and meant it. You are in my keeping now. If you are frightened, you may tell me. Myrcella's voice came small. Is my mother? Eddard's gaze lifted, and in his mind he saw Cersei's cold smile. Your mother is safe, he lied. Or perhaps it was not a lie yet. She will answer questions, as is right. Myrcella's eyes filled again. Tommen whimpered. Eddard rose slowly, feeling older than he had in years. Renly watched him, expression unreadable. You are kinder than most men would be, he said softly. Eddard's voice was hard. Kindness is not weakness. Renly smiled faintly. In this city, it often looks the same. Above, a bell began to toll. Slow, distant, and heavy. The sound drifted through stone like a warning. Robert's time was running out. Eddard looked up the stairwell toward the dark, toward the king's chamber. He felt the weight of the realm press down on his shoulders like snow on a roof. He turned to Hallis Malin. Send a man to the gates, he ordered. No one leaves the Red Keep tonight. No one enters without my word. Hallis nodded, already moving. Renly leaned close, voice low. Now, he murmured. We make the city ours before it wakes. Eddard stared into the torchlight and saw only shadows. Before it eats us alive, he said. Dawn came pale and cold, washing the Red Keep in a light that made every stone look tired. The bells began to ring before the sun was fully up. They rang from the Great September and from the towers, from the city beyond the walls, spreading the news like fire through dry grass. The king was dead. Eddard stood by Robert's bed as the last breath left him. There was no great speech, no final roar. Robert Baratheon simply stopped fighting. His chest rose once, twice, then fell and did not rise again. For a moment the room was very still. The milk of the poppy's sweet smell hung heavy. Pycelle sobbed openly, fat tears on wrinkled cheeks. A servant woman crossed herself in fear. Ser Barristan Selmy stood at the foot of the bed, white armor gleaming, hands clasped on his sword pommel. The old knight's face was carved grief. His eyes were dry. Eddard felt something in himself crack. Not loudly, not like a branch snapping, but like ice shifting on a river. He had lost friends before. He had buried men. Yet this felt like the end of a world he had been clinging to, the last tether to a boyhood of battle and laughter. He leaned close to Robert's face and closed his eyes, a small mercy. Robert looked almost peaceful, the anger gone from his brow. Eddard wondered if the gods had taken him to a place where lions could not follow. When he turned, Barristan met his gaze. He is gone, Barristan said quietly. Yes, Eddard answered. His voice was raw. He is. Barristan's jaw tightened. Who is king? The question hung like a blade poised to fall. Eddard reached into his cloak and drew out the parchment with Robert's seal. He held it up. By the king's command, he said, forcing steadiness. I am protector of the realm until his heir comes of age. Barristan's gaze flicked to the seal, to the words. He did not reach for it. His heir, he said slowly, as if tasting the phrase. Eddard's mind went to the children below in the tower, to Joffrey's rage, to Tommen's tears. The succession is disputed, Eddard said. Barristan's eyes sharpened. Disputed by whom? Eddard held the old knight's gaze. By truth. Pycelle sniffed loudly. My lord. Not now, Eddard snapped, and Pycelle fell silent, cowed. Barristan's hands tightened on his sword. You speak dangerously, Lord Stark. I speak as hand, Eddard said, and as a man who will not let the realm be ruled by lies. Barristan's gaze held him for a long moment. Eddard could see the war behind the knight's eyes. Duty against disgust, oath against knowledge. Barristan had served mad kings and good kings and drunken kings. He had watched men die for honor and men live for gold. He was tired too. If you have proof, Barristan said finally, then the realm must hear it. It will, Eddard said, but not in the street, not in chaos. The law will speak. Barristan nodded once, stiff. Then I will stand for the law. Eddard felt a flicker of relief. He had feared Barristan might draw steel on him. He had feared many things tonight. Fear was the only constant in King's Landing. As he left the king's chamber, the corridors outside were alive with motion. Servants hurried with cloth and candles. Guards stood straighter, eyes darting. Lord's men whispered in corners, their voices like rats. Renly met him near the stairwell, hair damp from washing, face bright. It's done, Renly said softly. The king is dead. Long live. Not yet, Eddard cut in. Renly's smile faltered. Still clinging to ceremony? Ned, the city needs a king now. It will not wait for ravens. It will wait, Eddard said, and there was iron in his voice. Because I will make it. Renly's eyes narrowed slightly. And who will you make it wait for? Stannis. Eddard did not blink. Yes. Renly's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He had known this answer, Eddard realized. He had simply hoped Eddard might bend. They descended together into the tower's lower halls, where the royal children were held. The sound of bells filtered through stone, constant, mournful, like a heartbeat. Joffrey stood again, restless as a caged dog. His eyes were red-rimmed, not from tears but fury. They're ringing for my father, he said, voice trembling with rage. For the king. For Robert, Renly said lightly. For the man. Joffrey's gaze snapped to him. And now they ring for me. Eddard stepped forward. No, he said. Joffrey's face twisted. You can't. I can, Eddard said. And I will. Joffrey lunged, but Renly's men held him fast. Sandor watched, silent, and Eddard could not tell if the hound's loyalty was to the boy or to himself. My lord hand, Sandor rumbled suddenly, voice like gravel. What happens now? Eddard looked at the burned man. You will keep the king's peace, he said, or you will keep yours elsewhere. Sandor's mouth curled. I keep what I'm paid for. Eddard's eyes hardened. Then you may find your pay uncertain. Sandor's eyes flickered. He liked coin, but he liked survival more. He gave a slow nod. Eddard turned away and strode toward the council chamber. Men fell in behind him. Stark guards, Renly's knights, Barristan Selmy in white armor like a cold god of war. As they walked, Eddard's mind ran through the pieces. The rookery was held. The gates were watched. The heirs were in his keeping. Yet the city was a sea of knives. Peter Baelish was somewhere smiling. Varys was somewhere listening. Janos Slynt commanded the gold cloaks like a dog pack. The Lannisters had men in the castle, in the city, in every shadow. And beyond King's Landing, Tywin Lannister would hear the bells and taste opportunity like blood. Eddard reached the council chamber doors and paused, hand on the iron handle. The bells rang on. In the silence between tolls, Eddard could almost hear the realm cracking. He opened the doors. The council chamber was too familiar, too calm for the storm it contained. The long table gleamed in candlelight. The carved chairs waited like judges. Pycelle sat already, cheeks blotched, eyes watery. Varys lounged like a cat, hands folded, expression mild. Peter Baelish sat with one leg crossed over the other, smiling as if this were some private jest. Eddard hated that smile. Renly took a chair near the middle, back straight, chin lifted. Barristan remained standing, white cloak falling in clean lines, a reminder of honor in a room full of schemes. Eddard placed Robert's sealed will on the table. The wax was still intact, though the parchment felt heavier than any steel. He looked at the faces around him, each one a different kind of danger. "The king is dead," Eddard said. His voice was steady now, as if grief had frozen inside him into something harder. "The realm mourns, but mourning will not keep the peace." Pycelle sniffed. "His grace. May the gods grant him rest." "Rest can wait," Eddard said. "We must speak of succession." Littlefinger's smile widened. "Ah," he purred. "The very word makes men reach for their knives." Eddard's gaze snapped to him. "Keep your jests," he said. "This is no game." Littlefinger's eyes glittered. "Everything is a game, my lord. Some men simply pretend otherwise." Varys lifted a hand mildly. "Peace, my lords. The realm's ears are open tonight, and they are not kind." Eddard broke the seal. The wax snapped cleanly. He read the will aloud. Robert's harsh words made soft by death. It named Eddard Protector. It commanded the realm to obey him until the king's heir came of age. When he finished, the room was quiet. Renly spoke first, voice smooth. "Then it is settled. Joffrey is king, and you are regent." Eddard's eyes held his. "No," he said. Pycelle's mouth fell open. Varys's expression did not change. Littlefinger's smile flickered, almost imperceptibly, like a candle flame in wind. Renly's brows rose. "No." Eddard's voice was flat. "Joffrey is not Robert's son." Pycelle made a strangled sound. "My lord, you cannot." "I can," Eddard said. He looked at each man in turn. "I have proof, written and witnessed. I have the king's own words, spoken before he died. I have the truth of blood." Littlefinger's eyes shone. "How dramatic!" Varys sighed softly. "Blood," he murmured, as if the word were a song he had heard too many times. Barristan's voice cut through. "If what you say is true, then Joffrey cannot sit the Iron Throne." He looked at Eddard hard. "Who then?" Eddard's jaw tightened. "Stannis Baratheon, the king's brother, the lawful heir." Renly's chair scraped slightly as he shifted. His smile was gone. "Stannis," he said, as if tasting something sour. Pycelle sputtered. "Lord Stannis is on Dragonstone. He has not been seen at court for years." "The lords." "The law does not ask the lord's comfort," Eddard said. "It asks obedience." Littlefinger leaned forward, elbows on the table, hands clasped. "And what of the queen?" he asked softly. "What of the king's children? Will you name them bastards in the streets and expect the city to applaud?" Eddard's gaze was cold. "The truth will not be softened to spare pride." Varys tilted his head. "Truth is a sharp thing, Lord Stark. Sharp things cut." His soft voice carried warning. "The queen will not accept this quietly." "She need not accept," Eddard said. "She will answer." Renly laughed once, bitter. "Answer? You think Cersei will sit patiently while Stannis sails in to take her children and her head?" He leaned forward, eyes bright. "She will burn the city before she yields." Eddard's mouth tightened. "Her children are in my keeping." Pycelle's face went pale. "In your keeping?" Littlefinger's smile returned, though it looked more like a grimace. "Oh," he said softly, "you've been busy." Eddard did not look at him. "The children are safe. They will remain safe. No harm will come to them." "And their mother?" Renly asked. Eddard's voice was hard. "Confined. Under guard. She will be questioned." Pycelle dabbed at his brow. "My lord, this is unprecedented." "Unprecedented," Littlefinger echoed, amused. "And yet, somehow entirely predictable." Eddard's patience frayed. "Enough." Renly's eyes narrowed. "So you mean to rule in Stannis's name until he arrives?" Yes. And if he does not arrive quickly? Renly pressed. If Tywin Lannister marches? If the city riots? If the Gold Cloaks decide they prefer a Lannister king to a harsh Baratheon? Renly's voice sharpened. If the Tyrells choose to crown me because I am here, and Stannis is not? Eddard's gaze snapped to him. Would you allow that? Renly held his gaze without blinking. For a heartbeat, the charming younger brother vanished, replaced by something colder and more ambitious. I would allow what keeps me alive, Renly said softly, and what keeps the realm from tearing itself apart. Eddard felt a chill. The realm, he said, does not belong to you to keep. Renly's mouth tightened. Nor does it belong to Stannis. He stood suddenly, chair-scraping. You ask me to help you deliver the crown to a man who has hated me since I was in swaddling clothes. A man who will strip me of Storm's End and call it justice. A man who will punish every lord who laughs too loudly. Barristan's gaze flicked to Renly. Lord Renly, the law? Renly cut him off with a sharp gesture. The law is a blade, Ser Barristan, and Stannis Baratheon loves blades more than men. He looked back to Eddard. I gave you my men tonight because I would not see Cersei Lannister devour you. Do not mistake that for surrender. Eddard rose slowly. I did not ask for your surrender, he said. I asked for your honor. Renly laughed again, sharp. Honor. His eyes glittered. You Northerners clutch that word like a talisman. Eddard's voice was low. And you Southerners treat it like a joke. For a moment, the room hummed with tension, candles flickering as if the air itself trembled. Varys spoke gently, as though soothing children. Perhaps, he said, we should speak of practical matters. The city must be secured. The gates, the watch, the people. Littlefinger leaned back, smile lazy. Yes, practical matters. Such as how many swords Lord Stark truly has in this city. His gaze slid toward Renly. And how many he borrowed. Eddard's eyes narrowed. I have enough. Littlefinger's smile widened. Do you? Eddard ignored him. He turned to Barristan.
Ser Barristan.
Will you stand with me until Stannis arrives? Barristan's jaw clenched. Then he nodded once. I swore to protect the realm, he said. I will stand for lawful succession. Renly's eyes flashed. Lawful, he spat, then straightened, mask slipping back into place. He gave Eddard a shallow bow. Very well, Lord Protector. Rule in your brother's name. Summon your stern king. I hope he thanks you. His gaze held Eddard's sharp. But do not expect me to kneel to him without reason. Eddard's voice was steady. You will do your duty. Renly's smile was thin. We shall see. He turned and strode to the door, green cloak swinging like a banner. Ser Loras Tyrell followed, face tight, eyes flicking back once. Toward Eddard, toward the table, toward the future. When the doors closed behind them, the council chamber felt colder. Littlefinger exhaled softly, almost pleased. Well, he murmured. That went rather better than I expected. Eddard's gaze cut to him. Say what you mean, Baelish. Littlefinger's smile was pure silk. Only that you've made enemies very quickly, my lord. And you've done it without even the courtesy of pretending otherwise. Eddard's voice was flat. I have done what needed doing. Varys's eyes were gentle. Need is a dangerous master, he said softly, and you have just chained yourself to it. Eddard looked at the will on the table, at Robert's words, at the ink like dried blood. He thought of Renly's departing back and Cersei's burning eyes. He thought of Stannis Baratheon, stiff and unyielding as a winter tree, and wondered if he had traded one kind of doom for another. Then he stood straighter, because doubt was a luxury kings did not allow their hands. Send ravens, Eddard said, to Dragonstone, to Winterfell, to Riverrun. His gaze swept the room. And pray. Pycelle crossed himself with trembling hands. Littlefinger smiled. Varys sighed. Outside, the bells rang on. Renly did not go far before the rage cracked through the charm. In the stable yard, with horses stamping and men tightening girths, Renly grabbed the reins of his own mount with white knuckles. His smile was gone, stripped away by cold air and betrayal. "He means to hand it to Stannis," Renly said, voice low. "Hand it to him like a gift wrapped in Stark honor." Loras Tyrell stood beside him, jaw tight. The young knight's hair was dark gold, his eyes bright. "Lord Stark is honorable," Loras said, as if that explained everything. Renly's laugh was sharp. "Honorable, yes. So honorable he'd rather lose a realm than bend a knee to reality." Renly swung up into the saddle in one smooth motion. "Stannis will come and he will punish. He will take Storm's End from me and call it justice. He will make me kneel, or he will break me." Loras's hand tightened on his own reins. "Your Grace." Renly's gaze snapped to him. "Do not," he snapped, then softened. "Not yet," Loras swallowed. "What will you do?" Renly stared toward the city beyond the walls, where smoke rose and the bells still rang faintly. "What I should have done years ago," he said. "What Robert was too lazy to do and Stannis too bitter to do." He smiled then, but it was not warm. "I will take the realm before it takes me." Loras's eyes shone. "HIGHGARDEN." Renly nodded. "HIGHGARDEN, the Reach, the Storm Lords." He leaned closer, voice low. "If the realm must have a king, better a king they will love than one they will fear." Loras's mouth tightened. "Stannis is the lawful heir." Renly's eyes flashed. "Lawful," he said, contempt thick. "Law does not feed children. Law does not keep peace in a city full of starving mouths. Law does not stop Tywin Lannister from marching." He glanced back toward the keep's towers. "And law will not save Lord Stark when the knives come." Loras hesitated. "You helped him." "I helped myself," Renly said, blunt. "And perhaps I helped the realm. For a night." He shrugged, green cloak shifting. "But I will not be Stannis's stepping stone." A stable boy approached, eyes wide, clutching a message. "My lord, Lord Renly." Renly took the parchment, broke the seal, scanned it and laughed again, soft this time. "Baelish," he murmured, amused. "Already playing his games." Loras frowned. "What does he say?" Renly folded the parchment and tucked it into his glove. "He says the city is restless," he said lightly. "He says the gold cloaks follow coin, not honor. He says Lord Stark has the Queen's children, but children are not crowns." His eyes glittered. "He says the Tyrells will choose wisely." Loras stiffened. "House Tyrell does not take orders from Peter Baelish." Renly's smile turned sly. "No, but House Tyrell loves opportunity. And I..." He looked at Loras, and something softer flickered beneath the ambition. "I offer them a queen." Loras's breath caught, and for a moment his face was as open as a boy's. Then he nodded, fierce. "Then we ride." Renly's men gather.
Des, cloak snapping, armor glinting.
They rode out through the inner gates, past guards who watched with uncertain eyes. Renly did not look back at the Red Keep. He did not need to. He could feel it behind him like a shadow. In the tower, Eddard Stark would cling to law and truth. Renly Baratheon would cling to men's hearts. And between them, the realm would bleed. Cersei Lannister did not scream. She did not beg. Even behind iron bars in a cellar that smelled of damp stone, she held herself like a queen. Eddard descended alone save for 2 guards. The torchlight made the walls sweat. The air was cold enough to raise gooseflesh on his arms beneath his cloak. Cersei sat on a stool in the corner, hands folded, golden hair loose around her shoulders. She looked up as he approached, eyes bright in candlelight. "Lord Stark," she said softly, "come to gloat." Eddard's boots stopped before the bars. He looked at her and felt only weariness. "I have no taste for gloating." Cersei's mouth curved. "Then you have come to threaten." "I have come to offer you a way to live," Eddard said. Cersei laughed softly, as if amused by a child's naivety. "Live? You mean rot in some sept while Stannis Baratheon hacks my children's names from history." "I will not allow harm to them," Eddard said. and forced himself not to flinch at her sharp gaze. "They are innocent." Cersei leaned forward, candlelight catching the planes of her face. "Innocent," she echoed. "Myrcella is sweet. Tommen is soft." Her voice hardened. "Joffrey is not innocent." Eddard's jaw tightened. "He is a child. He is a monster in the making," Cersei said, blunt as a blade. "And you have made him your enemy. You have made me your enemy." Her eyes glittered. "Do you think you can cage lions with bars? We chew through iron." Eddard's voice was low. "I am not your enemy," he lied or tried to. "I am the realm's protector." Cersei's laugh was sharp. "Protector? Yes. Protecting the realm from what? From a woman who wanted her son to sit where all sons sit when their fathers die." She leaned closer, eyes burning. "Tell me, Stark, would you have done differently if it were your son? If it were Robb, and the realm whispered he was not yours, would you hand him over to a bitter uncle?" The question struck, sudden. Eddard thought of Robb's face, earnest and proud, of the way the boy had watched him with hungry eyes when he spoke of duty. He thought of how easily words could ruin a life. He steadied himself. "Robb is mine," he said, and his voice carried something like threat. Cersei smiled. "Is he?" she purred. "The realm believes what it is told." Eddard's hands curled into fists. "Enough." Cersei's smile faded. "You came to offer me a way to live," she said softly. "How generous. What is your price?" "Confess," Eddard said. "Admit the truth before the council, before the faith if it must be. Name the father of your children. Yield. Take the Black or take the Silent Sisters or go into exile." He held her gaze. "And your children live. With honor." Cersei stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed, long and cold. "Honor," she said. "Always honor." She stood, slow and graceful even in captivity, and stepped close enough to the bars that Eddard could smell her perfume beneath the cellar's damp. "There is no honor in this city," she whispered. "Only power, and power belongs to those who take it." Eddard's voice was hard. "Then you will die." Cersei's eyes flashed. "Perhaps," she said, "but you will die too." She leaned closer, voice dropping. "Do you know what Tywin Lannister does when you take from him? Do you know what he did to the rains of Castamere? He did not simply kill them. He erased them." Her lips curved. "Your house is old, Stark. It has roots. Tywin will burn those roots. And when Stannis comes, he will burn what remains." Eddard felt a chill despite the torch. "Stannis will not burn innocence." Cersei's laugh was a soft hiss. "You know nothing of Stannis." She tilted her head. "And you know nothing of your friend Renly either. He is already gone. He will crown himself before Stannis' ships reach the bay." Eddard's stomach tightened. Renly swore to help secure the lawful succession. Cersei's smile was cruel. "Men swear many things when they think they can win. Renly wants the crown. The Tyrells want a queen. Peter Baelish wants chaos. Varys wants..." She shrugged delicately. "Who knows what spiders want?" Eddard felt anger rise. "If you know all this," he said, "why did you not stop it?" Cersei's eyes glittered. "Because I thought you would die first," she said simply. "And perhaps you still will." Her gaze slid up and down him as if measuring. "You are out of your depth, Stark. You have taken the first step into darkness. The next steps are easier." Eddard stared at her, the candle between them throwing shadows across his face. He thought of Robert's last words. "Be cruel." He took a breath. "If you attempt to escape," he said, "I will send your children to Winterfell." Cersei's face went very still. For the first time, something like fear flickered in her eyes. Not for herself, but for them. It was small, but it was there. "You would not," she whispered. Eddard's voice was flat. "Try me." Cersei's hands clenched, nails biting her palms. "You are a bastard," she hissed. "You are no different from the rest of us. You simply pretend better." Eddard turned away from the bars, disgust and sorrow twisting together. "Perhaps," he said, and did not look back. But I will not pretend for you. As he climbed the stairs, the air grew warmer, the sound of bells fainter. Above, the city moved, hungry and restless. Above, his daughters waited. Behind him, in the cellar, Cersei Lannister's laughter followed like a curse. Dragonstone was all stone teeth and sea wind, a castle that seemed grown rather than built, black and jagged against a gray sky. Stannis Baratheon stood in the chamber of the painted table with Eddard Stark's message in his hand. The parchment looked small against his broad, scarred fingers. The raven that had borne it sat on a perch nearby, head cocked, black eyes bright. Davos Seaworth waited at Stannis' shoulder, cap in hand, the smell of salt clinging to him like a second skin. He could read Stannis' moods the way he read the sea. In the set of his jaw, the tightness around his eyes. Stannis read the message again, as if repetition might change its meaning. Robert was dead. Eddard Stark held King's Landing. Cersei's children were taken. The truth was spoken aloud at last. For a long moment, Stannis said nothing. Then, slowly, his mouth twisted, not into a smile. Stannis Baratheon did not smile. Into something sharper, satisfaction without warmth. So, he said, voice low, Eddard Stark has finally found his spine. Davos cleared his throat carefully. Lord Stark is an honorable man. Honor, Stannis spat, as if the word were ash. Honor is a cloak men wear when they have nothing else. He looked down at the parchment. And yet he has done what must be done. His eyes narrowed. Or tried. Davos shifted. He says the children are unharmed. They had better be, Stannis growled. If any harm comes to them while they are in his care, every lord in the realm will call me butcher and traitor and raise banners for Renly. He slammed the parchment down on the painted table, where the rivers and roads of Westeros lay carved and colored. Renly, Davos swallowed. Renly will not take this kindly. Stannis' jaw clenched. Renly will do as he always does, smile and betray. His eyes flicked toward the window where the sea was a slate sheet. He will crown himself. From the shadows near the table, a soft rustle came as red silk moved. Melisandre of Ashai stepped forward like a flame given flesh. Her red gown clung to her, her hair was darker than blood, and at her throat a ruby glimmered as if it held a small sun. The air around her seemed warmer, though the castle was cold. The raven came swift, she murmured, voice like velvet. The Lord of Light favors your cause. Stannis' gaze snapped to her. The Lord of Light favors what is righteous, he said harshly, as if reminding himself. Melisandre's lips curved. Righteous, she echoed, and necessary. Robert's death opens the way. Her eyes shone unnaturally in torchlight. The darkness stirs. The realm must have the true king. Davos's stomach tightened. He did not like the way she spoke of kings as if they were torches to be lit and thrown. Stannis' hand clenched on the table's edge. We sail, he said abruptly. Davos blinked. At once, Stannis' glare could have cut stone. At once, Davos bowed his head. Aye, your grace. Stannis' gaze returned to the painted table, to King's Landing marked near the mouth of the Blackwater. If Eddard Stark truly holds the city, he said, voice tight, then I take the throne without blood. He looked at Melisandre. And if he does not? Melisandre's smile was slow. Then the fire will show the way. Davos felt cold despite the torches. Your grace, he said carefully. Lord Stark will need help. He will have the gold cloaks, perhaps, but Tywin Lannister. Tywin will come, Stannis said, and there was grim certainty in it. He will come with fire and steel. He will come because he cannot bear to lose. Stannis' eyes narrowed. He should have taught his daughter to keep her legs closed. Davos winced, but said nothing. Stannis' cruelty had always been blunt, like his justice. Stannis turned sharply. Send word to the captains, he commanded. Ready the fleet. Load provisions. We sail with the tide. Davos bowed again. Aye. As he turned to go, Stannis' voice stopped him. Davos. Davos looked back. Stannis held up Eddard's message. This man, he said, voice harsh, has done what he must, though it will damn him. When I take the throne, he will be rewarded. Melisandre's eyes glimmered. Or consumed, she murmured softly. Stannis ignored her. If he lives, he added, and there was a hard edge of truth there. Davos felt a knot in his chest. He will live, he said, more hope than certainty. He has held fast this long. Stannis' mouth twisted again. We shall see. Outside, the wind howled around Dragonstone's towers like a beast hungry for blood. Below, ships' masts bobbed in the harbor, waiting. Westeros was moving. Pieces were sliding across the board. And in King's Landing, Eddard Stark stood with wolves at his back and lions in his grasp, praying the sea would bring the right king before the wrong war arrived. Night fell again, and King's Landing did not sleep. The city buzzed like a hive kicked by a careless foot. The bells had stopped, but their echo remained in the streets, in the whispers in taverns, in the way men looked at one another with narrowed eyes. Eddard stood on the battlements of the Red Keep and stared out over Blackwater Bay. The wind off the water was cold, carrying the smell of salt and fish and smoke from 1,000 cook fires. Torches flickered along the walls, their light trembling as if afraid. Ser Barristan stood beside him, silent as stone, white cloak snapping gently. The old knight's presence was a comfort, though Eddard knew comfort was another kind of lie. Below, the city sprawled. Rooftops, alleys, flickering lights like embers scattered across darkness. Somewhere down there, hungry men argued over bread. Somewhere down there, gold cloaks leaned on spears and wondered which side would pay better. Somewhere down there, Peter Baelish smiled in some brothel and counted the ways a realm could break. Eddard's breath steamed faintly in the night air. He had not slept. He had not eaten properly. He felt hollowed out, as if the day had scraped him down to bone. Behind him, a door creaked. A guard's boots approached. "My lord," Hallis Mullen said quietly. "The harbor watch reports lights on the water." Eddard's heart tightened. "How many?" "Hard to say," Hallis admitted. "But more than fishermen." Barristan's head turned slightly, gaze sharpening toward the bay. "Sails," he said softly. Eddard stared harder. At first he saw only darkness and the faint shimmer of moonlight on water. Then there, a cluster of shadows, moving slowly, like a school of sharks. Stannis. Relief surged through Eddard so sharply it hurt. It was not joy. It was not triumph. It was the knowledge that he would not have to hold this alone much longer. Yet relief was quickly followed by fear. When Stannis comes, Eddard thought, the realm will not simply bow. Renly will rise. Tywin will rage. The faith will howl. The city will riot. And Stannis Baratheon will not soften his justice for any man. Eddard heard footsteps again behind him and turned, hand instinctively near his sword. Sansa stood in the doorway, wrapped in a cloak, her hair braided. Her cheeks were pale in torchlight, her eyes too bright. Arya hovered behind her like a shadow, eyes sharp, face set. "Father," Sansa said softly, They say the prince is not a prince," Arya cut in, chin lifted. "A prisoner." Sansa flinched. "He is still Joffrey." Eddard's chest tightened at the pain in her voice. He stepped closer to his daughters, feeling suddenly the weight of their smallness in this giant city. "Sansa," he said gently, "listen to me, the boy you thought you knew." "I know him," Sansa whispered fiercely, and tears glimmered. "I know he can be cruel, but he is the king's son." Eddard's voice was soft but firm. "He is not." Sansa's breath hitched. "You cannot say T. Hat," she whispered, horror and disbelief tangled. "You cannot." "I must," Eddard said. He took her hands, feeling how cold they were. "I am trying to keep you alive." Arya stepped forward, eyes narrowed. "Is the queen in a cell?" Eddard hesitated. Arya was too young for this, yet she had always been too old for songs. "Yes," he said, "and you will not speak of it." Arya's mouth tightened. "Good." Sansa stared at him as if he were a stranger. You're taking their children," she whispered. "Like hostage, like protection," Eddard said, though the word felt thin. "No harm will come to them. Not while I breathe." Sansa's tears spilled, silent. "Joffrey will hate you," she whispered, as if that were the worst thing in the world. Eddard thought of Joffrey's eyes, of Cersei's threats. "He already does," he said quietly. From somewhere behind the battlements, faint and muffled, came a shout. Angry, high, familiar. Joffrey again, raging in his confinement. Eddard could almost see him in his mind, pacing like a caged lion cub, plotting cruelty. Arya looked toward the sound, unimpressed. "Let him scream," she muttered. Sansa's shoulders shook. Eddard pulled her closer, holding her as he had when she was small and afraid of thunder. But she did not relax. She was already slipping away into a world of her own making, and Eddard felt helpless before it. Barristan's voice came quietly. "Lord Stark," he said, "the ships will reach the bay by morning." Eddard nodded, gaze returning to the shadows on the water. Then the realm changes again. Sansa pulled back slightly, wiping her cheeks with the back of her hand. "Will we go home?" she whispered. Eddard's throat tightened. "Soon," he lied or hoped. "Soon." Arya looked up at him, eyes bright with something like fierce trust. "We'll get out," she said. "We're wolves." Eddard managed a faint smile at that, though it felt like trying to smile with a broken jaw. "Yes," he said. "Wolves." He looked back toward the bay where Stannis' sails crept closer. He looked down at King's Landing, where smoke and hunger and ambition twined together like serpents. He felt the weight of the crown he did not wear pressing down anyway. Behind him, in a guarded window, a pale face watched from the darkness. Joffrey Baratheon's eyes glittered with hate, fixed on Eddard's back like a knife finding its mark. Eddard did not see him. He could not see all the knives. He could only see the approaching ships and the thin, fragile hope that law might hold long enough to matter. The wind rose, and the torches flickered, and the city below whispered its hungry prayers to any god that might listen. Dawn in King's Landing was always a kind of lie. The light came thin and pale over Blackwater Bay, glancing off the water like tarnished silver, and for a heartbeat the city looked almost clean from above, almost innocent, as if last night's whispers and knives had been washed away by the turning of the world. Up close, the stink remained. Fish rot and piss, wet rope, tar, the smoke of 1,000 cookfires struggling to feed 1,000,000 mouths. The harbor was awake long before the nobles stirred. Fishermen hauled nets with cracked hands. Dockmen cursed and spat. Children with hollow cheeks prowled like cats for scraps. And then the ships came in. At first Eddard Stark saw only their shadows, dark shapes on the graying water, but as they drew near the black hulls became distinct, the tall masts cutting into morning like spear points. Their sails were furled tight, as if the fleet had come with clenched fists. Men moved on decks in disciplined silence. No cheating, no songs. Only the creak of timber and the slap of waves against wood. Stannis Baratheon did not arrive like Renly, bright and laughing, perfumed with charm. He arrived like judgment. Eddard stood on the stone quay with Hallis Malin at his back and Ser Barristan Selmy beside him, the old knight's white cloak stark against the dawn. Gold cloaks lined the docks in rough rows, spears upright, their eyes darting from the ships to the men who had ordered them there. They were city watch, but they were also men with bellies and families and a hunger for coin. Eddard could feel their uncertainty like a draft through cracked walls. A gangplank thudded into place. Boots struck wood. A figure descended with measured steps. Stannis Baratheon was not tall like Robert had been, but he carried himself with a rigid straightness that made him seem carved from iron. His jaw was hard, his mouth a thin line. The crown of his hair had begun to thin, and the sea wind tugged at the dark strands that remained, as if trying to pull him apart. His eyes were like chips of flint, cold and sharp, and they fixed on Eddard without warmth. Behind him came a man in plain cloth with the look of the sea in his face. Davos Seaworth, though Eddard had never met him. A smuggler turned knight, the whispers said. A man Stannis trusted, which made him rarer than rubies. And then came the woman in red. Melisandre moved as if the air shifted for her. Her gown was red as fresh blood, clinging to her in a way that made dockmen stare and mothers clutch children close. A ruby burned at her throat, catching dawn and making it seem as if she carried her own flame. Her eyes found Eddard, and for a brief moment he felt as though she could see through his flesh to the old vows and new sins beneath. Stannis stepped onto the quay and did not pause to take in the city. He did not breathe in the stench of King's Landing. He did not glance toward the red keep on its hill. His eyes were fixed on Eddard Stark as if Eddard were the only piece on the board worth studying. "Lord Stark," Stannis said. His voice was harsh, like stone grinding on stone. Not greeting, not gratitude, a naming. "Lord Stannis?" Eddard replied, and felt the gold of the hand's chain hang heavy on his chest as if it were already a shackle. "I am glad you came swiftly." Stannis's mouth twisted, not quite a sneer. "Glad," he repeated, as if tasting the word. "I did not come for your gladness. I came for what is mine." Eddard nodded once. "The city is held," he said. "The gates are watched. The rookery is secured. The queen is confined, and the children are in my keeping." At that, something flickered in Stannis's eyes. Approval, perhaps, or satisfaction sharpened by suspicion. "So your honor did not kill you," he said. "It tried," Eddard answered, and surprised himself with the honesty. Ser Barristan stepped forward then, the clink of his armor quiet but unmistakable. "Your grace," he said, and went to one knee on the stone. His white cloak pooled like snow at Stannis's feet. Stannis looked down at him. "Ser Barristan," he said, and for the first time his voice held something like respect. "You remained." "I serve the realm," Barristan replied, gaze lifted steady. "And the lawful king." Stannis's gaze flicked briefly to Eddard, as if weighing what influence the Stark had had. Then he nodded once. "Rise. You will have need of your legs." Davos cleared his throat softly. "Your grace," he murmured. "The watch." Gold cloaks watched with narrowed eyes, and Eddard saw the moment the tide turned. Men followed strength. They followed certainty. Stannis stood on that dock like a man who had never doubted his right to command. Even those who hated him could sense it. Eddard raised his voice so the gold cloaks could hear. "This is Stannis Baratheon," he called. "Brother to King Robert, rightful heir by law and blood. By the king's law and blood, he comes to claim what is his. Any man who lifts steel against him lifts steel against the realm." Some of the gold cloaks shifted. A few glanced at one another. One spat, as if trying to rid his mouth of fear. Their captain, one of SLYNT'S men, nodded stiffly, but Eddard could see the calculation behind his eyes. Who wins, who pays, who lives? Stannis's gaze swept the line of gold cloaks like a knife. "They look poorly disciplined," he said. "They look poorly fed," Davos murmured, and Eddard heard something in the man's voice. Practicality, pity, a sailor's understanding of what hunger made of men. Stannis ignored him. "Take me to the castle," he commanded. As they began the climb toward the Red Keep, the city watched from alleys and doorways. Word ran ahead like wildfire. Men leaned out of windows, pointing at the black-hulled ships. Women whispered prayers to the Seven. Children ran beside the column until a gold cloak cuffed them away. Melisandre walked near Stannis, her red skirts brushing mud as if it could not stain her. Once, she turned her head and looked up at the Red Keep on its hill. The ruby at her throat glimmered. "The stones remember," she murmured softly, so softly Eddard might have imagined it. "They remember dragons." Eddard's skin prickled. "This is not a dragon's war," he said, more to himself than to her. Melisandre's smile was slow and unsettling. "All wars are the same beneath the skin," she whispered. "Only the names change." Eddard looked ahead to the Red Keep, to the walls that had already tasted Robert's blood and heard Cersei's laughter in a cell. He thought of his daughters waiting, of the lion cubs in his care, of Renly racing south with roses in his wake. He had brought Stannis to the city like a hard answer to a hard question. Now he wondered what price answers demanded. The throne room smelled of cold stone and old smoke, a place built for echoes and awe. The Iron Throne sat at the far end like a jagged cliff of swords, its blades catching torchlight in hard gleams. Men always pretended the swords were symbolic, but Eddard had seen enough blood to know symbols cut just as deep as steel. When Stannis entered, the room changed. It was not only that he brought soldiers, men in dark armor with the sea's salt still on them, faces weathered and hard. It was that he brought a kind of stern gravity that settled into the hall like frost. Servants who had been lingering near pillars scurried away. Lannister guards who still wore crimson and gold stiffened as if anticipating a lash. At the council table to one side, the usual faces waited like actors forced to perform a new play. Grand Maester Pycelle with his beard trembling, Lord Varys serene as ever, Peter Baelish smiling as if delighted by the morning's surprise. Eddard's fingers flexed at his side. He had not forgotten how quickly Littlefinger's smile could become a knife. Stannis did not go to the table. He did not glance at the Iron Throne at first. He stopped in the center of the hall, feet planted, and let his gaze sweep the room, pinning men like insects. Pycelle, he said. Varys. Peter Baelish. He spoke their names with a sharpness that made them sound like charges. Your Grace, Pycelle stammered, half rising, half falling, unsure whether to bow or flee. Varys dipped his head gracefully. Your Grace, he murmured, voice smooth. The realm welcomes you in its hour of grief. Peter Baelish's smile broadened. Your Grace, he said, as if greeting an old friend. You've arrived sooner than I dared hope. Stannis's eyes narrowed. You dared hope, he repeated, cold. How bold. Eddard stepped forward before the brittle tension snapped. Stannis, he said, and felt the weight of the word. The king is dead. By his will, I was named protector until his heir came of age. He held out the parchment, the seal broken, the words already read. I have held the city for you. Now I relinquish that charge to the rightful king. Stannis took the parchment, scanned it, and grunted. Robert, he said, and there was contempt in the name, tangled with something that might have been grief. Even dying, he needed another man to do his duty. Eddard did not flinch. The realm needs clarity, he said. It needs you. Stannis's gaze fixed on him. And you, he said, need to understand something, Lord Stark. You did not hold the city for me out of love. You held it because you could not stomach a lie. Eddard's jaw tightened. Truth matters. Truth matters, Stannis echoed, and for a moment his eyes were almost fever bright. Yes, it does. That is why I am here. He turned then and looked at the Iron Throne. For a heartbeat, Eddard thought he might climb it at once, seize it like a man snatching a sword. But Stannis did not move. He simply stared, face hard, as if measuring a burden rather than a prize. Ser Barristan stepped forward again and knelt, more formally this time, his white cloak spilling across the stone. Your Grace, he said, I am yours to command. Stannis's gaze dropped to him. Stand, he ordered. You will have need of your legs. Eddard's stomach tightened. He knew Stannis was not a man to accept courtesies. His gratitude, if it came at all, came in commands. Stannis's gaze swept to Pycelle. You will remain Grand Maester, he said, until the Citadel sends another or until you die. Serve me faithfully, and you will be left to your books. Pycelle sagged. Thank you, Your Grace. Do not thank me, Stannis snapped. Serve. Pycelle's mouth shut with a click. Stannis's eyes moved to Varys. And you, he said, you have served too many masters. Varys's smile remained gentle. A humble servant serves the realm, Your Grace. Stannis's eyes narrowed. The realm is not a master. It is an excuse. Varys's eyes flickered, briefly sharp, then softened again. As you say. Then Stannis looked at Petyr Baelish, and the air felt suddenly thinner. You, he said softly, sit at the heart of the realm's coin. Tell me why. Petyr spread his hands. Because I am useful, he said easily. Because I can count, and most lords cannot. And because you have made yourself indispensable, Stannis said. How much does the crown owe? Petyr's smile did not falter. A great deal, he said pleasantly. The late king's tastes. The late king's weaknesses, Stannis corrected harshly. How much? Petyr tilted his head. Several million gold dragons, your grace, scattered among noble lenders and the Iron Bank and House Lannister, Stannis said, and it was not a question. Petyr's smile became faintly apologetic. The realm borrows where it must. Stannis's face darkened. This is what Robert left, he said, and the contempt in his voice was sharp enough to cut. He turned back toward the throne, as if disgusted by the talk of coin. He climbed the steps toward the Iron Throne without ceremony. When he reached it, he stood beside the jagged seat, one hand resting on cold steel. I am Stannis Baratheon, he said, voice carrying. Brother to Robert, rightful heir by law and blood. The late king's so-called children are not of his body. Their mother has committed treason and incest. Those who have aided this lie have committed treason against the realm. A murmur ran through the hall like wind through dry grass. There will be no mercy for treason, Stannis said. There will be no pardon for lies. I will have justice. Eddard heard the words and felt a chill. Justice was Stannis's god, perhaps more than any flame or seven. Justice could be as cruel as any sword. Stannis looked down at Eddard. Lord Stark, he said, you have done the realm a service. You will continue to do so. As you command, Eddard said. You will be my hand, Stannis said, and the hall murmured again. Eddard bowed. At his head, feeling both relief and dread twist together. I will serve, he said. Stannis nodded once, as if confirming a tool was sharp enough. Good, he said. Bring me my brother's crown. And Eddard realized the realm had crossed another threshold, one that would not easily be undone. Stannis wanted to see her before he wanted to see the crown. Eddard led him down into the earth beneath the Red Keep, through sweating stone and torchlit passages where the air was colder and smelled of mildew and old fear. Barristan came as well, silent, and two of Stannis's men with hard faces and spears. Melisandre followed without being asked, her red skirts whispering over damp stone as if the dark welcomed her. Cersei Lannister sat behind iron bars with her spine straight and her chin lifted, as though she were still above them. Her hair had loosened, strands falling around her face, but her green eyes remained sharp enough to cut. When Stannis appeared at the edge of the candlelight, she smiled slowly, the smile of a lioness who had been caged but not tamed. Brother, she purred. Stannis's face did not change. Whore, he said, and the word fell like a stone. Eddard's gut tightened. He had expected harshness, but hearing it spoken so plainly made the cellar feel smaller. Cersei's smile did not falter. If anything, it sharpened. Always so courteous, she said. I suppose your northern hand has told you everything. Stannis's gaze flicked to Eddard for the briefest moment. He told me enough, he said, then returned his eyes to Cersei. You have shamed the crown, broken your vows, and defiled your marriage bed. You have placed bastards on the throne and called it legitimacy. His voice tightened. You will confess. Cersei laughed softly. Confess, she echoed. And then, you will cut off my head and call it justice. Stannis's mouth was a thin line. Yes, he said. If you are guilty. Cersei's laughter turned sharper. If, she repeated, as if savoring the absurdity. We both know you do not care for proof. You care for righteousness. You have always cared more for being right than for being loved. Stannis took a step closer, the candlelight catching the hard planes of his face. I do not need love. Of course you do, Cersei whispered. You simply never got it. Eddard felt Melisandre's presence like heat at his back. She lies, Melisandre murmured, voice velvet. She has always lied. Cersei's gaze slid toward the red woman, and something like disgust flickered. And what are you? She asked softly. A foreign witch whispering in a Baratheon's ear? Melisandre smiled, slow and unreadable. I am a servant of the Lord of Light, she said. And you are darkness. Cersei's eyes glittered. I am a mother, she said, and the word carried a blade of its own. And you would take my children from me. They are not yours to weaponize, Stannis said. Cersei leaned forward until her face was close to the bars, candlelight painting gold and shadow across her cheekbones. You have no idea what children are to a woman, she whispered. You have no idea what it is to love something so fiercely you would burn the world before you let it be taken. Stannis's eyes narrowed. Love, he said, contempt thick. You call that love? T is, Cersei hissed. It is the only love worth anything in this world. Eddard stepped forward, voice controlled. Enough, he said. This is not a quarrel to be screamed in a cellar. Stannis's gaze snapped to him. You would counsel me to softness? He demanded. Eddard held his ground. I counsel you to law, he said. You cannot take the throne on the first day and stain it with blood in the second. He glanced at Cersei. Let her be tried. Let the realm see. Let the faith hear. Cersei's smile widened. Ah, she murmured. The noble wolf wants a trial. He wants the realm to watch you do what you came to do anyway. Stannis's jaw worked. Eddard could see the war inside him. Fury against practicality, the urge to strike against the knowledge that striking too soon could shatter everything. Trial, Stannis said at last, the word sounding like a concession ripped from him. Very well, you will be tried. His eyes drilled into Cersei. But understand me, woman. If you confess, I will end it quickly. If you lie, I will drag the truth out of you with iron and fire. Eddard's stomach turned at the word fire. He felt Melisandre's smile behind him like a shadow of flame. Cersei's gaze did not waver. You can drag whatever you like, she said softly. You will still lose. Stannis's voice was cold. I do not lose. Cersei's smile was cruel. Everyone loses, she whispered. Some simply lose later. Stannis turned abruptly, as if disgusted by her presence. Bring me Jaime Lannister, he ordered, voice sharp. If he remains in this city, put him in chains. Eddard felt a tightening in his chest. Jaime. He had not seen the Kingslayer since the night's chaos began. A man like Jaime did not sit quietly while his sister was caged. He will not come willingly, Eddard said carefully. Stannis's eyes were flint. Then he will come bleeding. Melisandre's ruby glimmered. Blood calls to blood, she murmured. Eddard looked at her then, truly looked, and felt a cold certainty settle. Stannis had come to King's Landing with more than ships and soldiers. He had come with a fire that did not care what it consumed. The children were the part Eddard could not numb himself to. He had told himself 1,000 times that he was protecting them, that keeping them under guard was a necessary cruelty, that no harm would come to them so long as he breathed. Yet every time he heard Tommen cry in his sleep, every time Myrcella's thin shoulders shook, every time Joffrey's rage filled the tower like smoke, Eddard felt as though he were betraying something fundamental in himself. Stannis came to see them that afternoon, with the hard efficiency of a man checking a ledger. Barristan accompanied him, and Davos as well. Melisandre did not, to Eddard's relief. He did not want her eyes on children. They found Joffrey pacing like a trapped animal, his hands clenched, his face flushed with fury. Myrcella sat on a bench, Tommen pressed against her, her doll forgotten on the floor. Sansa stood nearby with Septa Mordane, pale and rigid, while Arya hovered in the shadow of a pillar, eyes sharp, body coiled as if ready to spring. When Stannis entered, Joffrey stopped and stared. For a heartbeat, the boy's arrogance faltered. He knew Stannis, knew the stern uncle who had never smiled at him in court. the man Robert had mocked behind his back. Joffrey's fear flared into hate almost instantly. "You," Joffrey spat, "you have no right to be here." Stannis regarded him as one might regard a piece of dung on a boot. "I have every right," he said coldly. "You have none." Joffrey's face reddened further. "I am the king. You are not," Stannis replied, voice flat. Joffrey's mouth opened, closed. "My father. Your father was Jaime Lannister," Stannis said, and the words landed with a violence that made Myrcella gasp and Tommen begin to sob anew. Sansa made a small strangled sound, a half-suppressed cry of horror. Septa Mordane crossed herself frantically. Arya's face tightened, anger and pity twisting together in a way Eddard had rarely seen in her. Eddard stepped forward quickly, kneeling beside Myrcella and Tommen. "Hush," he murmured, voice gentle, hand resting briefly on Tommen's shoulder. "No one will hurt you." Tommen's sobs hitched. Myrcella's eyes were wide, wet. She looked at Stannis with the frightened understanding of a child realizing adults could be monsters too. Stannis did not soften. "They are to be kept under guard," he said. "They remain hostages against Tywin Lannister's madness." He looked at Eddard. "Where will you send them?" Eddard's stomach tightened. "Here," he said, "in the Red Keep under watch. Near me." Stannis's eyes narrowed. "Here," he repeated, "in the city where their mother's men still crawl through shadows, where gold cloaks take bribes, where riots can start with a loaf of bread. You would keep them here." "They are safer under my hand than in any ship," Eddard replied, thinking of storms, thinking of Dragonstone's hard, black cliffs, "and safer here than in any Lannister house." Stannis's jaw clenched. "You would have me trust you with them?" Eddard met his gaze steadily. "Yes," he said, "because I will not allow them to be harmed for the sins of their parents." Stannis's mouth twisted. "Sins," he said. "Incest is not a sin. It is a crime. Treason." Eddard's voice tightened. "And they did not commit it." Stannis stared at him for a long moment, eyes hard. Then he looked back at the children. His gaze fell on Myrcella, and something shifted, so slight Eddard might have imagined it. Not pity, perhaps, recognition. Myrcella's fear was quiet, dignified in its small way. Tommen clung like a drowning boy. Even Stannis, with all his iron, could not deny their innocence entirely. "They will remain under guard," Stannis said at last. "Under your guard." Then his gaze snapped to Joffrey again. "And this one will be kept muzzled if he cannot control his tongue." Joffrey trembled with rage. "You can't." Stannis's voice cut through him. "You will be silent," he commanded, and there was a weight in the words that made Joffrey recoil as if struck. Davos shifted uncomfortably, eyes on the children. "Your Grace," he said quietly. "There." Stannis's gaze flicked to him. "Do not," he snapped. "Do not soften me with babe's tears." Davos's jaw tightened, but he bowed his head. "As you say, Your Grace." Sansa stepped forward then, and Eddard's heart clenched. She looked fragile, but there was something stubborn in her too, a Stark streak she did not know she possessed. "Uncle Stannis," she said, voice trembling. "If Joffrey is not, if he is not, then what will happen to him?" Stannis looked at her as if noticing her for the first time. "He will be judged," he said, "as all men are." Sansa's eyes filled. "He is only a boy. So was Aerys once," Stannis replied, and the coldness of it made Sansa flinch as if slapped. Arya stepped forward before Eddard could stop her. "You're cruel," she said bluntly. Silence fell like a dropped sword. Septa Mordane gasped. Sansa's eyes widened in horror. Barristan's expression tightened. Even Davos looked shocked. Stannis turned slowly toward Arya Stark. For a heartbeat, Eddard feared the king might strike her with words sharp enough to cut flesh. Instead, Stannis's eyes narrowed, studying. "Cruel," he repeated. "Perhaps." His mouth tightened. "The world is cruel, girl. I did not make it so." Arya held his gaze without blinking, chin lifted. "Then don't be like it," she said. Eddard's chest tightened at her bravery and her foolishness. He reached out and pulled her back gently. "Enough," he murmured to her low. Stannis's gaze lingered on Arya a moment longer, then moved away. "Prepare the proclamation," he said to Eddard. "By nightfall, every street must know the truth, and every lord must receive my summons." His eyes were flint. "Those who refuse will be named traitor." Eddard rose slowly, feeling the weight of the words settle. "Renly will refuse," he said. Stannis's mouth hardened. "Then Renly will die a traitor," he said, as if stating to weather. Eddard looked down at Myrcella and Tommen, at their tear-streaked faces, and felt something inside him twist. He had brought Stannis to the city for truth, but truth in Stannis's hands was beginning to look like another blade. The truth did not travel through King's Landing like a noble announcement. It moved like a plague. By midday, criers were shouting Stannis's proclamation at street corners, their voices cracking as they read words that could turn a city inside out. The paper was sealed with the stag, and men touched it as if touching it could prove it real. "By law and blood, Stannis Baratheon, first of his name." The crowd jeered and shouted back, not because they loved lies but because they were hungry, and hungry men loved any excuse to scream. Some laughed at the idea that a queen could be a whore. Some spat at the name of Lannister. Some shouted for Joffrey because Joffrey was the boy they had been told was king, and change frightened them. Eddard rode with Davos and a small escort, watching the streets as if watching a battlefield. He had fought in snow and mud, had smelled blood and fear. King's Landing smelled of something worse: desperation. Gold cloaks stood in tense lines, spears upright, ready to shove back the crowd if it surged. Eddard saw their eyes flick to one another, saw the way some looked away when they heard Stannis's name, as if afraid his justice might reach even them. Beside Eddard rode a boy in a rough apron, black hair falling across his brow. His arms were strong with smith's work, his hands scarred and calloused. He stared at the city with a wary, stubborn look, as if expecting it to bite. Gendry, Tobo Mott's apprentice, Robert's blood made flesh, with the Baratheon look written plain on his face. Eddard had sent for him at dawn, and the boy had been dragged from his forge confused and angry. He had tried to fight the men who came for him until one of them mentioned the king. Then he had frozen, as if hearing that word had struck him in the gut. Now he rode beside Eddard, shoulders tense, eyes scanning the crowd. "What am I doing here?" Gendry demanded, voice raw. "I've got work, and I don't want trouble with no lords." Eddard kept his voice low. "You are here because the realm needs proof," he said. "Proof of what?" Davos glanced at the boy with something like sympathy. "Proof that kings don't all look like lions," he murmured. Gendry scowled. "I don't care about kings." "You should," Eddard said, and hated himself for how true it was. "Kings care about you." They stopped near a crumbling wall where a crier stood on a barrel, shouting himself hoarse. Flea Bottom's alleys pressed close, packed with small folk like rats in a cellar. A woman with a baby on her hip spat at the crier. A man with missing teeth shouted that it was all lies, all lordly games. A barefoot child tried to steal a gold cloak's pouch and got slapped hard enough to stumble into the mud. Eddard's stomach twisted. This was what Robert's reign had fed: hunger and cheap wine and the illusion that a fat king's laughter could keep the wolves from the door. The crier reached the part about incest, about bastards, about treason. A murmur ran through the crowd. A man laughed. Another made the sign of the seven. A woman hissed a prayer. Then someone shouted, "If Joffrey ain't king, who is?" The crier lifted the parchment. "Stannis Baratheon," he bellowed. "By law and blood." The crowd erupted, some cheering, some jeering, most simply screaming because noise made them feel less powerless. Eddard watched their faces and realized the truth was not enough. Not here, not among starving mouths. Truth did not fill bellies. Davos leaned closer. "They don't care about your books," he said quietly. "They care if the bread comes." Eddard nodded slowly. "I know. A man in the crowd pointed at Gendry suddenly. "Who's that?" he shouted. "Look at him. Black hair like the old king." Heads turned, eyes narrowed. The crowd pressed closer, curious, hungry for spectacle. Gendry stiffened. "I didn't do nothing," he snapped, instinctively backing his horse. Eddard raised a hand, calming. "He is proof," Eddard said loudly enough for those nearest to hear. "He is Robert Baratheon's blood. Look at him and look at the Queen's children. Then tell me which blood sits the throne." The crowd murmured again, this time different. Less jeering, more uneasy. Some eyes softened, others hardened. A woman whispered, "It's true," as if tasting fear. A stone flew from somewhere, striking a gold cloak's helm with a clang. The man flinched, spear jerking. The crowd surged, not in love or hate, but in the sudden animal movement of bodies pressed too tightly together. "Back!" a gold cloak shouted, shoving. Another raised his spear. Eddard felt the moment tipping. He lifted his voice. "Hold!" he ordered. "No killing." Not over words. Davos's hand touched his arm, urgent. "My lord," he murmured. "This city's a barrel of wildfire. All it needs is one spark." Eddard watched the crowd's faces. Hungry, angry, frightened, and felt the same truth settle again. King's Landing did not care who was lawful, cared who was strong and who fed it. Gendry stared at the people as if seeing them for the first time. "They hate us," he said, voice low. "They hate being powerless," Eddard replied. As they rode away, the cries followed them, echoing between filthy walls. Somewhere behind, a fight broke out. Fists, knives, hunger. The gold cloaks would beat it down, as they always did, and the city would swallow the blood and keep breathing. Eddard glanced at Gendry, at the boy's black hair and stubborn jaw, and wondered what kind of world made a king's son into a smith and a queen's son into a monster. Then he looked up at the hill where the Red Keep loomed, and he wondered how long Stannis' justice could hold a city built on lies. The first real crack came from within the city's own spine. That evening, as the sky bruised purple over the bay, Hallis Malin brought word to Eddard with a face carved from stone. "My lord," he said, "we caught gold cloaks at the mud gate, whispering with men in crimson, Lannister men. They had keys." Eddard's blood chilled. "Keys to what?" "To the Tower of the Hand," Hallis said, "and to the cellar stairs." Eddard's hand tightened on the table's edge. Cersei's teeth, he thought. Other teeth. "Where is Janos Slynt?" Eddard demanded. "Brought him," Hallis said. "He's shouting, claiming innocence, begging for your mercy." Mercy. The word felt bitter in Eddard's mouth. He had tried to buy safety with mercy once already and nearly died for it. They took Janos Slynt into the Red Keep's courtyard under torchlight. The yard was crowded with soldiers, Stannis' men and the gold cloaks who still obeyed out of fear or habit. Their breath steamed in the cooling air. Steel glinted. Faces were hard. Janos Slynt, lord of nothing but his own greed, stumbled in chains, his jowls shaking. His cloak was torn, his helm gone, his hair damp with sweat. He saw Eddard and surged forward as far as chains allowed. "My lord hand," Janos cried. "Lord Stark, this is a mistake. By the gods, I've served." Stannis stood on the steps above, rigid as a spear. In his hands he held Robert's crown, gold antlers catching torchlight, heavy and brutal. He had not placed it on his head yet, but the crown's presence made the air feel charged, as if the iron of kingship was already humming. "What is this?" Stannis demanded, eyes on Janos. Janos swallowed, eyes darting. "Your Grace, There are always whispers in the watch, always men talking." "Men talking," Stannis repeated, voice cold. "And men opening gates." Janos shook his head violently. "No. No, Your Grace. I swear. I swear on the Seven." "You swore other oaths," Stannis cut in. "To the crown, to the city, to keep the peace." His mouth tightened. "Instead you sold keys." Janos's eyes flicked toward Peter Baelish, who stood near an archway with his hands folded, smiling faintly, as if entertained by the theater of consequence. "My lord," Janos babbled, voice cracking. Lord Baelish said. "He said there would be trouble, that the best way to keep order." Eddard's gaze snapped to Littlefinger. Peter's smile did not change. He merely lifted his brows in mild surprise, as if Janos had named him in error at a feast. Stannis's eyes narrowed. "Baelish," he said softly. Peter bowed his head, all courtesy. "Your Grace," he purred. "I'm afraid Commander Slynt is grasping at any straw to keep his head, a common habit among men who've done wrong." Janos's face went purple. "You," he choked. "You promised." Stannis's voice cracked like a whip. "Silence." Janos fell silent, panting. Eddard stepped forward, keeping his voice measured. "Your Grace," he said. "If Janos Slynt has betrayed the city, he should be punished. But the watch must remain intact. If you cut too deep," Stannis's gaze snapped to him. "If I do not cut deep enough," he said harshly, "the rot remains." He looked back down at Janos. "You sold your duty for coin." Janos dropped to his knees, chains clanking. "Mercy," he begged. "Mercy, Your Grace. I have sons. I have a wife." Davos shifted uneasily. "Your Grace," he murmured, sending him to the wall. Stannis's jaw clenched. "The wall is for men who might be useful," he snapped. His eyes fixed on Janos. "You are not useful. You are a warning." Eddard felt a cold heaviness settle in his gut. He had seen executions. He had swung the sword himself. Yet this felt different, public, sharp, meant to teach. Stannis lifted Robert's crown slightly, as if weighing it. "A king who allows traitors to live," he said, voice carrying, "teaches the realm to betray." His eyes hardened. "I will not teach that lesson." Janos's eyes widened, terror flooding his face. "No." Stannis did not draw a sword. He did not need to. He gestured. One of his men stepped forward with an axe. Eddard's throat tightened. He wanted to protest. He wanted to argue for law, for trial, for process. But Janos Slynt's guilt was plain as his sweat. And Eddard knew, too, that Stannis's authority was still new, still fragile. A display of softness here might invite a dozen more betrayals by morning. The axe rose. Janos screamed. The blade fell. Blood splashed dark on pale stone. The scream cut off abruptly, as if the world itself had been silenced. For a heartbeat, the courtyard was utterly still, torches crackling, men breathing, eyes wide. Then someone in the gold cloaks began to chant, low and fearful. "Stannis, Stannis." Others joined, not out of love, but out of the sudden understanding that this king's justice was not a threat. It was a fact. Eddard stared at the body, at the headless stump of a man who had once commanded the city's watch with a smirk. He felt no pity for Janos Slynt, only a sick certainty that the game had shifted again, into something colder. Above, Peter Baelish still smiled, and that smile, unchanged by blood, frightened Eddard more than the axe. That night proved Cersei right about one thing. Lions did not sit quietly in cages. It began with a shout in the corridor outside the Tower of the Hand, a sudden clamor of boots and steel. Eddard was with his daughters when the noise came. Sansa stiff with fear, Arya alert as a hunting dog. Hallis Malin shoved the door closed and barred it, face grim. "My lord," he said. "Someone's cutting through the guard." Eddard's hand went to his sword. "Who?" Before Hallis could answer, the sound of a man screaming rose, then cut off abruptly, replaced by the clang of steel on steel. Eddard's blood chilled. Stark men were dying in his hallway. He pushed past Hallis and wrenched the door open, stepping into a corridor lit by torches that flickered as if afraid. Bodies lay on the stone, one of his men clutching at his throat, blood dark between his fingers. And there, at the center of the corridor like a white flame, stood Jaime Lannister. His Kingsguard armor gleamed in torchlight, the white enamel unmarred by dust, though a smear of blood darkened one vambrace. His sword was in his hand, and his green eyes burned with something raw and furious. "Stark," Jaime said, voice low and deadly. "Where is she?" Eddard's pulse hammered. He could feel his guards tense around him, could feel Arya's presence behind him like a small shadow poised to leap. He forced himself to keep his voice steady. "You should not be here," he said. Jaime's mouth twisted. "No," he agreed softly. "I should not. But my sister is in chains and my—" His gaze flicked past Eddard, toward the barred door where Eddard's daughters waited. Something hard tightened in his face. "And the children are taken. They are safe," Eddard said. Jaime laughed. "Sharp. Safe. In your care. Tell me, Stark, do you feel noble now? Holding children like hostages?" Eddard's jaw tightened. "I am protecting them from war." "From war?" Jaime echoed, eyes narrowing. "War is coming because of you." Eddard stepped forward a fraction. "War was coming regardless," he said. "Cersei chose it when she chose her bed." Jaime's eyes flashed. "Speak her name again," he hissed. A new presence moved into the corridor then, quiet but heavy. Ser Barristan Selmy stepped between them, sword drawn, white cloak falling like snow. The old knight's eyes were hard, his face carved from discipline. "Stand down, Ser Jaime," Barristan commanded. Jaime's gaze flicked to him, surprise flickering. "Barristan," he said, almost amused, still playing the dutiful knight. "I play nothing," Barristan replied. "You are attacking the King's Hand inside the Red Keep. Put up your sword." Jaime's mouth tightened. "Which king?" he demanded. "The bitter brother with the foreign whore? Or the drunk's bastard claim written on parchment?" Barristan's eyes did not flinch. "Stannis Baratheon," he said. "Lawful king." Jaime's laugh was cold. "Lawful," he spat, then looked back at Eddard. "Where is Cersei?" Eddard felt the weight of every thing pressed down, his promises, his fear, his need to keep his daughters safe. "Confined," he said. "Awaiting trial." Jaime's eyes narrowed. "Trial," he repeated. "Stannis doesn't do trials. He does punishments." Barristan's sword tip rose slightly. "Enough." Jaime's gaze flicked again toward the door behind Eddard, and Eddard realized with cold clarity what Jaime meant to do. He did not mean to debate. He meant to cut his way to Cersei and take back what he could: sister, children, pride. And damn the consequences. Eddard's voice hardened. "You will not pass." Jaime's eyes burned. "Then move," he said, and his sword lifted. The corridor narrowed into a tunnel of torchlight and steel. Eddard felt time slow, felt the moment before violence like a held breath. Barristan moved first. For an old man, he was impossibly fast. His blade flickered, seeking Jaime's wrist, forcing him back a step. Jaime's sword met it with a clang that rang down the corridor like a bell. Sparks flew. Jaime's face tightened with surprise and anger. "You're still quick," Jaime muttered. "And you are still arrogant," Barristan replied, voice calm. Steel sang again and again. Jaime pressed, the younger man's strength and skill undeniable. But Barristan gave ground with measured steps, never panicking, never breaking. Their blades flashed in torchlight, two legends colliding in a corridor slick with blood. Eddard stood back, heart hammering, unable to join without making it chaos. His men shifted, ready, but unsure whether to rush in and risk cutting Barristan as well. Jaime's sword slipped past Barristan's guard once, scoring a shallow line across the old knight's cheek. Blood welled bright. Barristan did not flinch. His eyes narrowed, and his blade snapped up, catching Jaime's sword and twisting. For a heartbeat, Jaime's weapon was trapped. "Yield," Barristan said, voice low. Jaime's eyes flashed with fury. He did not yield. He wrenched free and struck again, harder, driving Barristan back toward the wall. Eddard felt something like despair twist inside him. This was madness. This was what Cersei had promised. Knives in corridors, blood on stone, honor drowned in violence. A shout came from behind Jaime. Another corridor opening, boots pounding. Stannis' men, summoned by the noise, spilled into view with spears. Jaime saw them, and something in his face shifted. Calculation. He had not come to die here, not yet. He took a step back, blade held ready. "This is what you've made," he said to Eddard, voice thick with contempt. "You've put a crown on a man who will burn the realm to prove he's right." Eddard's voice was tight. "Go back," he said, "before you make it worse." Jaime's mouth twisted. "Worse?" he echoed, eyes flicking toward the barred door again. "You think this is worse?" He backed away slowly, never turning his back. Barristan held his stance, sword steady, blood on his cheek. Stannis's men leveled spears. The corridor thrummed with tension. And Jaime turned sharply and ran. Not in fear. Jaime Lannister did not flee like a craven, but in tactical retreat, vanishing down a side passage like a white ghost. Eddard exhaled slowly, realizing he had been holding his breath. Barristan lowered his sword. Blood dripped from his cheek. "He will not stop," the old knight said quietly. Eddard's voice was hoarse. "No," he agreed. "He won't." Behind him, the door to his daughter's chamber creaked. Arya's face appeared, pale but fierce. "Was that him?" she whispered. Eddard looked at her, at the child forced to grow hard too fast, and felt a surge of cold fury. "Stay inside," he ordered gently. "Both of you." Arya's eyes narrowed. "We're not safe," she said. Eddard swallowed. "No," he admitted softly. "Not here." And somewhere in the Red Keep's bowels, Cersei Lannister's laughter echoed in Eddard's mind like a prophecy fulfilled. By morning, ravens came like a storm. They arrived one after another, black wings beating against the pale sky, bringing words that felt like stones thrown through windows. Maesters hurried in and out of the council chamber, faces drawn, ink-stained fingers, wax seals snapped. The smell of parchment and sweat filled the room. Eddard stood beside the table with Stannis across from him, the antlered crown now on the king's head. It looked wrong on Stannis. Too large, too wild, the relic of a brother who had ruled with laughter and appetite. Stannis wore it like a punishment. Davos leaned over the table, pointing at maps spread across wood. Barristan stood nearby, cheek bandaged, face grim. Varys watched in silence, his mild expression giving nothing away. Pycelle fussed with a trembling scroll, eyes wide. "This one's from HIGHGARDEN," Pycelle stammered, holding out a letter with a rose seal. Stannis snatched it, broke the wax with a thumb, and read. His face darkened further with every line. "He has done it," Stannis said finally, voice flat with fury. "Renly has crowned himself." Eddard Stark tightened. "Already." Stannis's eyes were flint. "The Tyrells are with him," he said. "Mace Tyrell offers his daughter as queen, his swords as proof of love." He crumpled the parchment in his fist. "Traitors!" Davos exhaled softly, as if bracing for the blow. "The Reach makes a heavy host," he murmured. "They make a false host," Stannis snapped. "A host of men who prefer pretty smiles to law." His gaze cut to Eddard. "You said he would refuse." "I said he would," Eddard replied, voice tight. "I did not say he would wait." Stannis's mouth twisted. "Of course not," he snarled. "Renly never waits. He steals." Another raven message arrived, this one sealed in gray wax. Pycelle read, voice shaking. "News from the Riverlands, Your Grace. Lord Tywin Lannister has called his banners. Ser Gregor Clegane raids along the Red Fork." Eddard's stomach clenched. The Riverlands. Innocents burning because lords played their games. And, Pycelle added, swallowing, "Lady Catelyn Stark has taken Tyrion Lannister captive. Lord Tywin claims this as cause." Eddard felt cold wash through him. Catelyn. He had not had time to think of her, not amid the knives and bells. He pictured her in the Riverlands, fierce and brave and alone. He pictured Tyrion Lannister's sharp eyes, his clever mouth. He pictured Tywin's wrath. Stannis's gaze narrowed. "Your wife has taken the imp," he said. "Yes," Eddard answered. and his voice was heavy with the knowledge of what that meant. Stannis's jaw tightened. It complicates. It is already complicated, Eddard said. Stannis's eyes were hard. This gives Tywin justification to move against us openly, he said. And now he has a hostage to match his daughters. Eddard's voice tightened. Tyrion is not a child. No, Stannis agreed. He is worse. He is clever. Varys spoke softly at last. The realm now has 3 kings, he murmured, and none of them will yield. Stannis's gaze snapped to him. There is 1 king, he said coldly. The other 2 are traitors. Varys' smile was faint, sad. Of course, your grace. Davos pointed at the map. If Renly holds the Reach and Storm's End, he said, voice practical, his numbers will dwarf ours, and Tywin will come from the west with heavy horse. He looked up at Stannis. Your grace will need allies. Stannis's mouth tightened. I will call the lords to their duty. Davos hesitated. And if duty doesn't answer? Stannis's gaze flicked briefly toward the door, as if he could see the sea beyond the walls. Then fear will, he said. Eddard felt the chill of that. Fear will not win hearts, he said carefully. Stannis's eyes burned. I do not need hearts, he snapped. I need obedience. Barristan spoke quietly. Obedience bought with fear breaks when fear falters, he said, voice steady. Stannis's gaze flicked to him, sharp. For a moment, Eddard feared Stannis might lash out even at Barristan. But Stannis only tightened his jaw further, as if swallowing something bitter. Renly will march, Stannis said. Tywin will march. We will not sit in this city and wait to be crushed. He slammed a fist on the table, rattling inkpots. We strike first. Eddard's mind raced. Strike first, against whom? If Stannis marched south to face Renly, Tywin might take the city. If he marched west to face Tywin, Renly might claim legitimacy with the love of the people. If he stayed, he would be besieged. Your grace, Eddard said, voice measured. We must secure the city first. Food, watch, the gates. If the small folk riot, no army will matter. Stannis's gaze narrowed. You sound like you think like a lord, he said harshly. You are right. The admission tasted like poison. Very well. We secure the city. He looked at Davos. You will oversee the harbor. No ship leaves without my leave. No ship enters without being searched. If Jaime Lannister tries to flee by water, I want him in chains. Davos nodded. Aye, your grace. Stannis's gaze returned to Eddard. And you, he said, send ravens to every lord. Demand fealty. Demand hosts. Name Renly traitor. Name Tywin traitor if he marches without leave. His eyes hardened. If they do not answer, we will make them. Eddard bowed his head. As you command, he said. Inside, something tightened. He had wanted law. He had wanted truth. He had wanted the realm to be saved from a lie. Now the realm was drowning in proclamations and blood, and Eddard Stark stood beside a king who believed only iron could hold it together. The argument began in whispers and ended like thunder. Eddard met Stannis that night in a smaller chamber off the throne room, a place where maps could be spread without an audience and decisions could be made without ceremony. Torches threw uneven light on inked parchment. Daggers marked roads and keeps. The air smelled of wax and steel. Davos stood near the table, hands clasped behind his back, eyes worried. Melisandre was there too. As if she had been waiting for the moment the room would darken enough for her words to carry weight. Her ruby glimmered, faint at first, then brighter, as if tasting the tension. Stannis's face was rigid with contained fury. Renly has crowned himself, he said. He will take Storm's End and call it his seat. He will parade in silk and roses, and half the realm will fall on their knees because he smiles. Eddard kept his voice controlled. Renly has numbers, he said, and Tywin has steel. We must be careful. Careful, Stannis snapped. Careful is what Robert was. Careful is what got us here. Eddard's jaw tightened. Robert was not careful, he said sharply. Robert was careless. Do not confuse the two. Stannis's eyes burned. Do not lecture me on my brother, he hissed. Davos stepped forward slightly, voice gentle. Your Grace, he said. Lord Stark is trying to keep the realm from tearing itself apart. The realm is already tearing, Stannis growled. He stabbed a finger down on the map near the Stormlands. If I march at once, I can take Storm's End and break Renly's power before it swells. Eddard shook his head. Storm's End is a hard nut, he said. And if you march south, Tywin may take the city while you are gone. Stannis's mouth tightened. Then we leave enough men to hold it. We do not have enough men, Eddard said bluntly. Stannis's eyes narrowed. You doubt me. I doubt arithmetic, Eddard replied. Melisandre's voice slid into the room like smoke. There is another way, she murmured. Eddard felt his skin prickle. No, he said, before she had even finished. Stannis's gaze flicked to her. Speak, he commanded. Melisandre smiled slowly. The Lord of Light shows me shadows, she whispered. Shadows that wear a king's face. Shadows that can slip through stone and steel. Her ruby glowed brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. A traitor's heart can be stopped without a battle. One life can save thousands. Eddard's stomach turned. Sorcery, he said, voice hard. Murder in the dark. Melisandre's eyes found him, calm and burning. Justice, she corrected softly. A swift end for a false king. Eddard looked at Stannis, seeing the struggle in him, the hunger for victory, the anger at Renly's betrayal. Your Grace, he said, forcing steadiness. If you kill your brother with shadows, you will poison your own reign. The realm will not follow you out of love. It will follow you out of fear and hatred, and it will break the moment you are weak. Stannis's jaw clenched. You speak as if love wins wars, he said. Eddard's voice tightened. Love keeps peace when wars end. Stannis's eyes narrowed. Peace, he echoed bitterly. Peace is a dream for fat men. Davos stepped closer, voice pleading. Your Grace, he said. Renly's your brother. However, he's wronged you. Stannis's face twisted. He wronged me by being born, he spat. By being loved for nothing. By taking what is mine. Eddard felt a cold sadness settle. Stannis's wounds ran deep. Justice had grown in them like thornbush. Do not do this, Eddard said, and his voice carried the weight of a man who had watched madness destroy kings. Do not let her lead you into darkness. Melisandre's smile did not falter. Darkness is coming whether you walk toward it or not, she whispered. You cannot fight night with honor. You fight it with fire. Stannis's eyes flicked to her ruby, drawn like a moth to flame. For a heartbeat, Eddard saw the temptation in him. Swift victory, no siege, no blood-soaked fields. A brother's death in exchange for a throne secure. Stannis's fists clenched on the table's edge. Enough, he said finally, voice tight. No shadows. Not yet. He looked at Eddard, eyes hard. Do not think I deny it because you asked. I deny it because I will not be ruled by haste. Eddard exhaled slowly, relief sharp and uneasy. Thank you, he said. Stannis's gaze did not soften. Do not thank me, he said. You will find my restraint has limits. Melisandre's ruby dimmed slightly, her smile lingering like a promise deferred. Davos looked as if he had been holding his breath. Stannis straightened, rigid. We will secure King's Landing, he said. Then we will march. Renly will be dealt with openly. Tywin will be dealt with harshly. His gaze swept the map again, as if seeing enemies as stains to scrub away. And when this is done, every lord will learn what it means to defy lawful rule. Eddard looked at the daggers on the map and felt a cold dread settle in his bones. Wars were not stains. They were wounds. They bled. They festered. They did not heal cleanly because a king demanded it. Yet Eddard bowed his head anyway, because there was no clean road left. Outside, the city murmured in the dark, hungry and afraid, while above it the Red Keep held its breath, waiting for the first true thunder of war. The coronation was not a celebration. It was a verdict. There were no singers, no casks of wine rolled out for the city, no bright banners fluttering in a summer breeze. The hall was heavy with torch smoke and tension, as if the Red Keep itself remembered too well what happened when kings were made or unmade. Stannis Baratheon sat on the Iron Throne with Robert's crown on his head, the antlers rising like a cruel jest above his severe face. The jagged swords of the throne framed him like a cage, and for a moment Eddard wondered if any man could sit there without being cut, if the throne demanded blood from every king eventually, as payment for the conquest that forged it. Below, the gathered nobles knelt in uneasy rows. Some wore faces of dutiful solemnity. Some wore masks of calculation. Some looked as if they might bolt at any moment. The hall's whispers sounded like the rustle of dry leaves. Ser Barristan stood beside the throne, immaculate in white, his bandaged cheek a quiet reminder of the violence already seeping into Stannis's reign. Other Kingsguards stood as well, men sworn to protect the king. Now protecting a king the city did not yet know how to fear properly. Eddard stood at the foot of the steps, the hands chain cold against his chest. He could feel eyes on him. Lords measuring the northern wolf who had toppled a lion's cub, small folk watching from behind columns, servants peering through cracks in doors. Davos stood to one side, uncomfortable in such splendor, as if the hall's carved stone might reject him. Melisandre stood near him, red as a wound, her ruby glimmering faintly like a heartbeat in the dark. A herald stepped forward and called out Stannis's titles. The words rang and echoed, filling the hall with formal power. Yet Eddard could feel the truth beneath them. Titles were only ink unless swords obeyed. When the herald finished, Stannis rose, careful on the jagged steps of the throne, and turned his cold gaze on the kneeling lords. "You kneel," Stannis said, voice carrying, "because the law demands it. Do not pretend it is affection." His eyes swept them. "You will swear fealty, and you will keep it. Those who break their oaths will be punished." Some lords swallowed. Some nodded. Some kept their eyes down as if afraid to meet his. Stannis's gaze moved, searching. "Where is Peter Baelish?" he demanded suddenly. Eddard's stomach tightened. He had not seen Littlefinger since JANOS' head hit stone. Varys stepped forward with a soft smile that did not reach his eyes. "Alas, your grace," he murmured. "Lord Baelish seems to have departed in the night, as coin tends to do when one reaches for it too sharply." Stannis's face darkened. "Departed," he repeated, fury sharpening the word. "Find him," he ordered. "Bring him to me in chains." Varys bowed his head. "As you command." Eddard did not trust the softness of it. Varys obeyed commands the way water obeyed a cup, until it found a crack. A new messenger push. Through the kneeling lords then, breathless, face pale. He dropped to one knee before the throne. "Your Grace," he gasped. "Word from the west. Lord Tywin Lannister rides. 30,000, they say. The Riverlands burn. And Lord Renly Baratheon is crowned at Highgarden, with the Tyrell host at his back." A murmur swept the hall, louder than before. Fear, excitement, dread. The scent of coming war. Stannis's eyes burned. He looked down at the messenger as if the man had delivered a personal insult. "Of course," he said coldly. "Of course they move." He lifted his gaze to the kneeling nobles. "You see," he said, voice hard, "why weakness invites treason." His eyes narrowed. "I will not be weak." Eddard felt a cold heaviness settle in his chest. This was the moment the realm split into open war. No longer whispers and secret keys, but armies and burning fields. He thought of the Riverlands, soft and green, soon to be trampled. He thought of Winterfell, far away and vulnerable. He thought of Renly with roses and smiles, and Tywin with steel and silence. He thought of Cersei in her cell, laughing. Stannis's gaze slid to Eddard. "Lord Hand," he said, voice flat, "send my summons again. Call every lord to King's Landing. Those who refuse will be named traitor." His eyes hardened. and prepare the city for siege. Eddard bowed his head, feeling the weight of duty pressed down like snow on a roof. As you command, your grace. Stannis turned back to the hall. Rise, he commanded the kneeling lords, and choose, law or treason. There is no middle ground. As they rose, some faces were pale, some were grim, some were already plotting. Eddard stood beneath the Iron Throne and realized with a kind of quiet horror that Cersei's words had been true in their own poisonous way. The game had no middle ground, not here. He had chosen law. He had chosen truth. He had chosen to act when Robert died, to seize the lion's cubs and hold them as shields against chaos. And now, with Stannis Baratheon crowned above him and war galloping toward the city from every direction, Eddard Stark understood that choosing truth did not end the game. It only changed the shape of the knives.